allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, Dr. Willett, you have some acknowledgements tonight?
Welcome back to our student reps. It's amazing to have them. We love them. It's our acknowledgement.
Thank you, make them one better.
Oh, I thought we had BGP artwork too.
Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to. I don't have that. Next time.
Oh, okay. I am on the right agenda. Okay.
I just would have to go back.
No problem. It's okay. All right. So then moving on, are there any additions to the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Next is the approval of minutes. We have the January 21st, January 28th, and February 4th minutes. So I will accept a motion.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? With a roll call vote. Can we start with you, Joelle?
Aye.
Elaine?
I can only them that I was here for and abstain on February 4th, please.
Bill?
Aye.
Mackenzie? Aye. JP?
Aye.
JP?
Aye.
Anna?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my fault. Yeah, not here enough.
Thank you. Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. Yes. Okay, public participation. The members of the Tolland Board of Education welcome members of the public to share their thoughts and ideas at this time. When appropriate to do so, members of the board and the administration may respond to comments during points of information. However, in consideration of those in attendance and in an effort to proceed in a timely manner, follow-up discussion may need to take place outside of the meeting setting. So we will set the timer for 2 minutes. Dr. Willett, do you have that? Okay. Would anyone in the room like to speak at this time? Seeing none. Would anyone online like to speak at this time? Please raise your Zoom hand to do so and we'll unmute you. Okay, I see nothing online. Back to the room. Nope. Back online. All right, we can close out public participation. Thank you, Dr. Willett. Okay, next up is correspondence. Dana?
Yeah.
No correspondence at this time.
Thank you. Okay, points of information. Would any board members like to speak at this time?
Super quickly. I just want to congratulate two new council members who were seated last night, as well as the new vice chair. Council. I appreciate that we got it done before February 11th, which is today, our meeting. So less weight on our shoulders, obviously, selfishly. But again, congratulations to both members from a board member, and hopefully we can use that to get to work. So sincerely, Jaden.
Thank you.
You got it.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'm gonna move on to our student representatives report.
So student council ended up raising $212 for NAMI during Mental Health Awareness Week through a raffle basket fundraiser that we did.
We'll also be matching the donations, as well as we have started to plan our spring events like our pep rally and spirit week.
Thank you. Any questions for our student reps?
When's the pep rally?
You look like you had a
Oh, yeah. That's my favorite.
It's the Friday before April break.
Gotcha. So like the first week of April-ish?
I think so.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
April 10th would be that date for those of us planning our vacation.
Thank you.
Does Spirit Week and Pep Rally, do they coincide?
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys raised $212 and did you say you're gonna match it?
Yes, using our funds, or like our student council
Oh,
funds.
That's awesome.
great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to committee and liaison reports. We just handled this last week, so I don't think anybody's had a meeting since. Raise your hand if you have. All right, so I'm going to go by that too. Brings us to our chairperson's report, and I do have one tonight. This is my 5th year on the board, and therefore my 5th year in budget discussions. It grows more difficult every year due to increasing costs and the very limited increases we have had over time. With a 10-year average increase of only 1.6%, we have reached a point where it is becoming nearly impossible to sustain the programs and staffing our students deserve. I think Dr. Willett put it best last week when he explained that we have come to a place where we are doing more managing than leading at this point. I can't tell you how sad that makes me, but it's true. I set out on this journey to protect what our students had and provide growth and more opportunities for students, to protect and respect our staff more. And I feel like we are in a place where we are just triaging, trying to alleviate the deepest pain where and how best we can. Last week, after almost 5 hours of very hard work, we concluded with a 7.9% figure for Dr. Willett to run as a scenario to present tonight. I think we all, whether we voted for or against it, recognize that this presents a significant challenge for the town council. We all know a massive tax increase to the community isn't an option. So we remain hopeful that the council can help identify alternate funding options this year, but also work to find a better process for the long term. As I said last meeting, as long as the burden of running our town relies solely on taxing property owners, we will continue this vicious cycle year over year and decimate our district. The exercise we conducted last week, as we actually sat down to add and subtract specific reduction options from the superintendent's 9.8% proposed budget, was a sobering one, and that puts it mildly. I believe everyone in the room felt how limited our choices have truly become. When those options are placed in front of you and the impact on students becomes real, it is clear why we struggle to reduce that percentage. To be honest, the budget process is also more difficult for me from this seat than it was when I first joined the board, because back then I could vote mainly on my individual views and experiences. As chair, my leadership role requires me to be a listener first and a steward of the entire board's input. I feel a deep responsibility to hear every stakeholder and take your perspectives to heart. It's a more difficult way to navigate a budget for sure, but I believe it's the only way to ensure our decisions truly reflect the needs of our students and taxpayers. Because this process is so complex and the impact on our schools is so significant, my goal as chair is always to move forward with a shared understanding, regardless of whether our votes are in total agreement. That said, we will look at what we put forth last week and review any possible changes we can make at this point in the process, which is limited given we need to provide our adopted budget to the town manager per charter by the 14th. I hope we can show the community how hard we work together on this, and I will always aim for compromise and consensus. Moving on to old business, M1. Ready, Dr. Willett?
Yeah. Okay. We're just gonna have some Zoom stuff here. All right. So this is obviously the moment you've been kind of waiting for. You're building up to the February 11th budget conversation or review of the document. The document's been provided to you, and right now you should also have been able to find the digital document provided. Once the meeting is over tonight, I post the document that you approve for the public as well. So the public can find it on the budget page. And the budget page is www.tollandk12ct.us. And then if you go to the main page and click budget and then budget documents, you'll find the Board of Ed adopted budget here once the Board of Ed has adopted it. So right now you should have access to the digital budget. Also, you have a copy of the budget with you. I'll go over some of the basics of the budget at this time, and then kind of hand it over to the board for its deliberations. The Board of Ed adopted budget has some similarities to the superintendent's one, although it is lower, as you know. Following the directives from the last meeting, I made the adjustments that the board asked. The adjustments had the cumulative effect of shifting things slightly in that, overall cost drivers now, because we reduced transportation and certain other things, we have 65% of it, about $2.3 million is due to contractual obligations and drivers. 5% of the Board of Ed, 7.9% overall increase is comprised of cost drivers and obligations, and this gives you a breakdown. I did make some accommodations and modifications for the fact that, as we had talked about in the last meeting or two, that ECHIP, is in the process of disbanding. So there is some negation of one of those cost drivers for the coming year. If the district, as the district works through that, we'll have to be talking to the bargaining units and so on. But the state plan is one option, and there are other options. So you'll notice that in fiscal year 27, I negated the impact of the ECHIP health stuff, because at this point, it's not a cost driver for next year per se. If you think about 1 year to the next, it's still one of the major budget areas. It still is a big chunk of our budget, but I don't consider it a driver for fiscal year 27 anymore from the standpoint of going from point A to point B. It's not, it's not going to go up. Still a major contribution to our overall budget, like I said, or a major part of the overall budget, but it's negated a little bit now. Transportation is there still, but lower a little bit because of what you did. Overall, the difference is lower than it was. Not that there is no difference at all. There's still an impact, but it's a little bit less. So some of these things tweaked it a little, but you're still at around 65 to 70% of it is contractual obligations, and overall increase 5% of your 7.9 is made up of those obligations. This grant situation is still the same. The positions that you had, that we had eliminated there moving forward is potentially the 1.0 paraeducator, 1.0 or 2.0 special education, and 1.0 reading intervention, following the objective and the directive of, positions that were being vacated. You'll notice that we kept the focus as you desired on safety and security. So there is still within the budget, the security officers, there is still within the budget, the SRO, all of these things were at the direction of the Board of Education. And then, I left the narratives for these in the budget so that you can, see the narrative generally for the SRO, see the narrative and the responsibilities for the security officer, or what we call SATSA officer in the district. And you can also see the ABIS, which was also remaining in the budget. The Board of Education also preserved the clubs and activities funding that existed prior to this year. So parent guardians would be paying less than they have been this year, and it would go back to the old amounts, much cheaper amounts for the clubs, and not quite as stringent requirements that we used to have would be back in force if this Board of Ed budget goes forward and is passed. Fiscal year 27 would go back to the way it was around fiscal year 24. So these are just, some of the basic highlights. You had already reviewed everything that was changing because we talked about it on the 4th, and this is a manifestation of those changes. So that's where these things fell. I won't keep belaboring it at this point. You've seen the other parts of the document too. So it's similar sections, similar things, grants that change, things like that are changing. So that's roughly where we're at. Just pause now and see if you want to go over any other aspects of it.
Okay. So first, I just want to add that thank you, Dr. Willett, for all the hard work you and your staff put in this booklet. Also, if you all open the document that is posted to the dashboard that we worked with last week, Bill and I asked Dr. Willett, knowing that as we were doing this activity last week and ending close to midnight, and seeing that we were all surprised as we went through the process, that unfortunately the number still ran where it did. And again, that we are in Sophie's choice where the reductions we have to make feel impossible. The percentage that we feel that, would we be passing over seems impossible. we did ask Dr. Willett to see if he could work a scenario for us just to look at that was in the sixes. So he has done that. And you have that as a 6.7. So having said that, I would like to open the floor up to any questions or comments on either the 7.9 that Dr. Willett just presented to us or the working document with reductions to 6.7.
You want me to fly over it a little bit?
Sure, I just didn't know how much you could do with that. Sure.
Yeah, so you have access to it. It's the same document that you had been accessing last week. You're looking at the 6.7%. That should be the very first one. The 6.7% does have a larger staff impact than what you've seen in some of the other ones. If you look, maybe starting from the bottom up, you'll see some of the very similar things from last time, but one of the notable differences is athletics. Pay to participate fees from both the middle school and high school go up to $399. Now remember, you're going from a 7.9 to a 6.7 and still trying to stay within a realm of lower impacts, but in order to do that, pay to play fees for athletics go up. So they go up from $300 to $399. You're still reducing 2 buses. You still have anticipated special education transport and outplacement reductions. You still have retirement differentials and insurance reductions and so on. This difference here also is the pay to play of the clubs. While the sports goes up to $399, the clubs and activities now return to the founding model that would be in place this year. So parent guardians, $85 for the high school, $75 for the middle school, $55 for TEIS. Transportation line is still reduced. And then if you look at the yellow area, some of those are similar, but you'll notice that you've seen some of these before in your prior review of it, but there's a couple of them added. So that's how you get to a 6.7 from a 7.9, roughly.
Thank you. Bill, did you want to add anything?
No, I'll just echo what you said, that, it was a joint conversation with 2 of us and then 3 of us, that we just felt the temperature in the room that was shocked still after going through the process by it being 7.9. And with the limited options for reductions, even with Dr. Willett following our instructions of prioritizing people over positions, there's still limited options for us. So we wanted to see what it might look like if he didn't have those restrictions on him, and those instructions, to just give us something that seemed a little bit more palatable to some of us, and just see what it looks like. So that's why we're here where we're at now, instead of just looking at, the initial 7.9.
Now, if school security is brokered by our chair with the town council, that's something that would reduce this down now from a 6.7. If you chose that down to a 5 or potentially a 4, depending on whether you get technology and school security. So if those things were brokered in some way, then you'd be down in the zone of 5 or 4. I did not reduce. There is one thing here, though, to just bring your attention to it, to clarify. TIS Chromebooks are taken out of this. So unless they were alternatively funded. But otherwise, if you wrap up the whole security and some of the tech stuff, if the council did something with the chair, then that could get you into the 5 to 4.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, the goal is to leave those items in the percentage, because it makes it easier for them to work with. But obviously, if those things aren't supported or aren't supported in full, we can come back to the table and review even those things, right? You can review security and tech asks as well. But as of right now, they're in the total, with the hope that we gain some help there. There's not a lot of, because of the limitations on, the town being able to provide us funding for things that are recurring. There's not a lot of wiggle room for us to be able to ask them. So to be very specific in our requests and ask for security, which is something that they could fund, and to ask for tech, which is something that could be considered a capital item. It's not a recurring item necessarily. Those are options to fund. So that's why obviously we picked those to ask them about and to push forward. Because just asking them to help us with the dollar figure would cause a problem, because they really can't help us with something that's recurring out of funds that they have.
Question.
So,
Dr. Willett, lines 6 through 15.
But go ahead.
Am I in your way? I'm sorry.
No, it's, I'm trying to figure out so you can see the participants, but I can't get that. So I
I
want
have
to,
it on my,
oh, you got it. Okay.
yeah, I have it.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Line 6 through 15 on the document we're looking at. How many, give me the breakdown of people versus positions.
Well, if you look at 6, that was going to be an ad. 7 was going to be an ad. 8.
So those aren't people.
Those
Just
were
right
those,
now,
were,
those
those
are
were
people.
coming down from the superintendent's budget.
Okay,
Right.
so those are new
two
positions.
Yes, the 6 and 7 come down from the superintendent's budget. 8 is a person, 9 person, 10 is a modification of an existing contract. 11 is you can read that one as a no rehire of a person. If somebody retires, no rehire. 13 is same thing, retire, no rehire. 14, same thing, retire, no rehire. The 12 and the 15 would currently be people.
JP? JP.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
There we go. Now I can. Okay. Can you clarify the issue of the Chromebooks? Does that mean that those are going to be self-funded by the parents, or what's the story there? Over.
Not replace the ones at that level. We would go with the ones we have and try to make it another year at that level with the ones we have. We might have to change to a different format at that level. So it might not be 1-to-1 at that level anymore.
Okay, so we would still be issuing students Chromebooks, but they would not be newly refreshed this year, or what?
So the grades 6 through 12 would have the replacements, but the grade 5 would not. So they would have to work with what they have, whether that meant 1-to-1 or going back to some other kind of arrangement. They would have to work another year with the ones they have, which there's a reason why we have a replacement cycle. And that's usually because they start, becoming non-functional, and become non-functional at a level where, they just can't produce one for every student. So they might have to go to a different situation, a different setup for it. Because you can't have some people have them and not others. So if somebody's breaks down, you can't have, it can't be just, oh, sorry, that's it. You're not getting anything else. So they might have to think of another way to do it, since there isn't a replacement cycle for this year there in this budget, if we go forward with it.
So Dr. Willett, just as an example to maybe help JP, because his kids haven't been in school here, would possibly another model look like TIS students still had availability to use computers in class, whether that was like a CART model where they would just use them for certain subjects or a computer lab. They just would not be taking those devices home anymore.
Yeah, and it may be that not every class can use it all at once. You know, so the carts, we don't have the carts anymore. We would have to figure something out. It just wouldn't be getting replacement units, so we would have to figure out, maybe one grade wouldn't have any, and then fourth and fifth would have the older ones as replacements when things die out, and they would just try to make it a year, and maybe one grade would not have access to them the same way. And that would have to be on some version of a cart model, even though we don't have the carts. But the point is, it's trying to provide some adjustment for the board if that was the direction you wanted to go, and without that being a person.
JP, all set for now? Raise your hand if not, you're back on mute. All right, Elaine.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I just need clarification again on the Chromebook thing. That is not part of the tech initiative that we were already kind of thinking about. Okay, so this is a whole separate tech,
No, that's
This
part of the tech.
or is this part? So
That part of it just wouldn't be funded.
I see where you're going.
okay,
Can I jump in? Missed that.
okay, so that is still part of. So that's part of that big umbrella, the tech initiative that included replacing the Chromebooks as well as updating the Windows that we are hopefully asking for help from the town.
Yeah.
But we can't count on it, so we have to figure it out. So
That's under the guise of we can't count on it. So if that didn't happen, this is just 6-7.
But you're right, Elaine.
But if that's-
It's in contrast to what I said, yes.
yes, okay.
But I thought that the
Okay.
budget included, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it sounds like it is. Yes.
Good, but I heard you. Let me say it again.
So when we were like splicing out the tech initiative initially, and like when I was making some of our recommendations about what could be asked for, because it would be considered capital, maintaining a 1-to-1 for computers or Chromebooks or what I don't know, they're real computers, but is a recurring expense because we do it every year. Whereas like something like upgrading the Windows 11 is truly a non-recurring expense. So like every year when the third graders come in, we buy Chromebooks for that. So it is an annual expense. And I think that's where the delineation is, that we weren't asking for it from the town council because it is more appropriate for an operating budget. So if we want to maintain a 1-to-1, we would have to fund it. But if we think that the cut is worth it, we'd have to come up with another model for technology exposure at that young age.
When we're grouping the security and the tech together at about a 1.2, just don't have the individual numbers in front of me right now for each tech security, right? Are we including that in that number? Or were we just including the other parts of the tech?
Well, I mean, what you're talking about is what you could broker with the council.
No, I understand. I'm just.
So what you group, whatever aspect of it you want to, if you're talking about the entire thing, Windows, all ed tech initiative, because Windows is not ed tech initiative, but that ed tech initiative, all security officers, the SRO, that's where you're getting up to that 1.2.
Okay, so that makes Elaine's question make sense.
Yeah, I mean, what she's bringing up probably is that we had included it because it was possibly going to be taken out, otherwise funded on the town side if you negotiated such a thing. But for this scenario was a specialized scenario. This scenario isn't counting on anything right now per se. And what it would do is you'd still get, if everything else got negotiated, let's say everything else, you're still at a 1, you're still shifting it downward by about 1%, whether those Chromebooks are in there or not.
So to clarify that Mackenzie's point, which is valid as well, can we ask for the Ed Tech initiative, meaning the refresh? Would that still be in some way, shape, or form a possible capital request? I recognize that there's a higher turnover rate, but I still understand that it is still hardware, can be covered under capital budget requests.
Yeah. The hard part about these conversations is there's lots of nuance. So I can give you the answer traditionally, but I also would not have said that the SRO could be funded that way either. Because what you're talking about has been, making, brokering some arrangements, right? And just our chair brokered an arrangement where we, for all intents and purposes, have an SRO right now, and we wouldn't otherwise, and the board's not paying for it, would otherwise. So the point of this is, does it fit, under a capital request item? Typically, the council in this town has not loaded those things into the capital stuff. They've been considered when an opportunity arises type things. If you go to the state's strict definition, things like computers would be part of capital. That's why that 188 thing worked, because I got state information. We talked about it, and under the state's conditions, it does apply as capital. But in our town, it traditionally has been put in the woe category. So what we're talking about is, can you broker something different? That's why all of these things are, yes, it's true, because you're really talking about brokering a special arrangement, a special funding, not a capital thing, right?
Right. So then hearing what you said, unless you guys disagree with me, given that the state classifies computers as possible capital, I still believe it's something that we can ask the town council. New people, new term, new asks. So I'd still like to ask it. However, that does, based on your point, what I said earlier then becomes invalid in a sense. So thank you for catching that. So then rather than say that 1.2 of this could possibly be covered, given that the Chromebooks are on there, we'd probably say what, 1.1?
Yeah, another thing you could do is, if you take a look at the sheet, if I zero that out,
Perfect.
if I do, you're at a 6.8.
Right. So
then-
it changed about,
Then it goes back to the paradigm that
So-
you were talking about before.
yeah.
So the only reason it's there is because this particular scenario was created with a no boundaries sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
But I can, without that, it's at a 6.8.
And thank you for catching that.
No.
Go ahead, Nicole.
I did a little bit of research and got some input on capital. And I believe that the town's capital policy requires that any capital expense has to be depreciated over 10 years. And Chromebooks wouldn't be. They depreciate much faster than 10 years. So the Windows 11 upgrade would be, like, if we were really putting it to capital, would be appropriate to put on that list. But I think I'm still supportive of a special funding arrangement. But we might get pushback should we try to actually get that on the capital list going forward.
Understood. Thank you.
We're outside the time request for capital though, so
We
I
are.
keep saying this, so this would be a special funding request this year,
Yeah, I
not
think
for next year, but for this year.
you're probably better off defining this as a special funding request.
I understand. The only reason why I'm
And I'm not
discussing, I know, the only reason why I'm saying things like security and capital is, again, to show the differentiation between, I'm not asking for them to fund teachers as a recurring expense year over year, right? I'm asking them to fund things that are specified in other, that are covered in other districts, in other parameters and under the state. So, but with respect to the policy, but that's for them to then let us know and decide upon. That's one. Yeah.
Question in approving this, is there some sort of link? Now granted, we'd have to approve the budget as whatever it is, but is there something we can determine here or there, or whatever, leadership meetings or whatever, that we can engage this conversation with the council when it is time for capital budget discussions and whatnot, whenever that is? You've mentioned it so many times, Dr. Willett, and of course, I'm still blanking. I think August through October or something along those lines. Yeah. So is there, what would that look like? Is that a possibility? Is that something that, okay, we're asking for a special funding request right now with a caveat, a little carrot here of, well, we also want to engage in August, September, October, hopefully August, so we have more time to discuss it.
Our agenda.
Is that,
So, yeah, so the short answer is yes. I believe that going forward, we look at this.
Yeah.
We try to get these things worked in earlier in that process. for security, we have already had 2 leadership meetings that also included the superintendent and the town manager, where we discussed not only the current arrangement we have, but our hopes and opinions and ideas for a future arrangement. We're still working through the process of what we have right now. But this would then hopefully trump that if this was allowed, right? If you remember a couple meetings ago, maybe our first budget meeting, I suggested we have a joint meeting with the town council earlier before we adopted our budget. Unfortunately, we just seated 2 vacancies on the town council last night. So I didn't think that adding that to the plate of the 5 people that were there was a good idea to ask them for a joint meeting. So we do have a joint meeting where I plan to discuss all this. I'm also happy to entertain having an additional joint meeting earlier or later. So short term, yes, we've started discussions on security already. We will discuss it with tech in the joint meeting, or if everybody wants to, in another meeting that I'd be happy to ask for. But yes, then going forward, I would expect that whatever agreement we have for security would be for a number of years. But again, we won't know that until they're able to decide what they're going to do there and how they would be able to fund it if they do decide to. And then the same with tech, depending on what they allow, then we would definitely try to get that in as a capital item going forward.
Okay, so they are in their own buckets, even though timeline wise, they're in their own buckets and they're even tech and security are probably in their own buckets themselves as well. Just with how I'm understanding this. So that makes more sense. My thing with everything that I'm going to say tonight and believe in everything that I believe, and whether it's I'm here, whether it's I'm, in my private life, again, it's value and how much does this make sense? And my hope is that we can get out of the cycle of, okay, here's a stopgap. We're going to do this for now. As you can see, our contractual obligations are higher and higher and higher every year because we're sort of, that's a longer discussion, but I hope we can avoid making these stopgap decisions that land us in these situations every year. And I take credit for that as well in being on the board the last 4 years. So the reason for me saying that is with everything I'm going to say tonight, it is with the intention of let's have some form of long-term planning, which we've mentioned now, I feel like 3 of the last 4 years, in mind as we engage in this conversation and not just make it about, what we need right now, but moving forward, what would that look like as well? So, and I'll have other questions and statements, plenty of them to make, but I just wanted to get that while we were on this topic. Hopefully I'm making myself clear and make sense.
No, you are. And can I just add that I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I think the challenge for us in some of the long-term planning is just the nature of the fact that these boards turn over every 2 years. So it's hard to say, okay, let's have a 5-year plan, but we're all only going to be here for 2 years to agree with it. However, the council certainly has buckets, policies, funds that have stipulations on them. So if they are able to say this is for 5 years, this is a 5-year security fund, things like that, then I think that would hold term to term unless another board came in or another council came in and overturned it. But we really we're very limited in options from where we are because we can't really say this is our 5-year plan and we're sticking to it without the council agreeing that they're going to stick to a 5-year plan too.
Yeah.
Right. No, but we should do as much long-term planning as we can. We should, when we have these discussions, make sure that we ask for some longevity in this.
Correct.
Right. And just keep working towards better foresight. I mean, I wish I did when we did the capital, I wish I had the foresight to ask, what if this is tech? Can we add that on there and start those conversations? But it was also last term, technically. So I didn't have as much to be able to do that.
No, and I think that's the right word. I was going to use the word permanence, right? We need a sense of permanence of what's going to stay for over the next, whatever it is, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever. But I think longevity is the right way to sort of approach this. And just how can we create some sustainability in thought, right? How can we create some level of sustained thought process of how the Tolland boards operate? And over the last 4 years, it has been a miserable process in figuring that out. So again, hopefully I'm making sense as to where I'm at, and I appreciate your explanation of it because it just set the picture very clearly. And again, I'll be the first to ask about this come July ahead of August and make sure that these conversations are being held. But I obviously trust you guys to engage those conversations as well. So, and again, I don't need to be a part of every conversation. It's more so that the conversations are being had. And again, between leadership, superintendent, the town council leadership, and the town manager, I believe that can get done. So my hope is, now I'm speaking to the camera here, my hope is that it does get done, and that the counselors that are involved in that process, get a better understanding of our process here and how we get to the numbers that we're at and why we're asking for what we're asking for. So just the due diligence part, over the next however many months till August, I hope is paid in full. That's all on that topic, at least.
Dr. Willett, was there anything that maybe I was incorrect on or anything where you want to add?
Well, no, I guess I would add, but not, there wasn't anything incorrect on, just, if you look at places that do 5-year plans, one thing that has to happen is there has to be an understood baseline budget.
Right.
So what will happen is no matter what the fluctuation is in the tax base of support, there has to be a mechanism for making that a predictable amount for the 5-year period.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, if you aim at a 3.35, for year one, 3. If you say you need, for instance, like out 5 years, we need a 3.35 year one, 3.62 year two, 3.48 year three, 2.9, and then 3. You're doing some of that based on your contracts too. 2-year contracts, 3-year contracts, things are going out, you have to project it. So if your budgets end up being 0.84, 1.75, it kills that. So now you did not reach that 3 for that year that you had said, you would and had planned on it. Now you have to make adjustments against it. That screws up your plans.
Yeah.
So what has to happen is finance groups have to get together and say, we are going to sustain X budget over the next 5 years, and we're going to be asking the community for X. But if the community doesn't provide X, we're going to supplant that with what?
Right.
Because if you don't, then 5-year plans collapse as soon as you're not able to get the budget to sustain it. And then that collapse creates a problem for the next year, which if that budget doesn't get sustained at that level, creates an ongoing problem the next year. So you can't sustain an initiative you cannot fund consistently.
Just to get it out there, by finance groups who need to get together, meaning, what does that mean?
Well, some towns have a board of finance.
Gotcha.
You have council. So there would have to be some commitment on the side of all elected bodies that interact on this. And if you're going to do a 5-year plan across all groups, all departments, all areas, there would have to be some understanding that we're going to go for X percent. But if that doesn't get funded, we're taking the differential out of some funds you have. Right? Because if you don't do that and the budgets go down, how can you sustain your initiatives over 5 years if you don't? Right? There would have to be some cooperation about, okay, we're going to aim at this, and then we'll make up the difference through this other mechanism. Because if you can't really, this is why a lot of people go 5-year plan, like, okay, whatever, because if you can't get past year one with the budget that you needed to sustain your initiatives, then what's the point of talking about 5 years? That's how that ends up collapsing. So we've had actually 5-year projections. We did a couple of 5-year projections for the FFC and the board, but we didn't get to to do that. And they weren't crazy. It was like 3, 3 in the 3 zone, most of them. Yeah, been there somewhere. So, but that collapses quickly when there's no way of funding the differential, and you're talking about a difference of $1 million.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. I think again, as long as there's some sort of strategy moving forward, I think we're doing the right thing. I do think that by just doing the same thing over and over and over again, we're just putting. You can see, even if we started at 9 point, what was the first proposal? 9.9. That still wouldn't be, in my opinion, satisfyingly equipping our district to be the best district it can be, given the circumstances we're in. And so my thing right now is we keep putting ourselves in a hole because the effort, I don't know if it's a matter of effort or a matter of, again, boards change and leadership changes and ideas change and missions change. but we're just going to keep putting, never mind ourselves, who knows if we'll be here in 2 years, who knows if we'll be here in 4 years. It's the town, it's taxpayers, it's students who are not even in the school district yet, who are going to be affected in 5 years from now, right? So it's seniors who aren't retired yet, but might retire in 5 years from now. So at some point, we've got to think, and it's not even really this board, and it hasn't been the last 4 years. It is my hope that this new council can at least engage in conversations around something like this, because if we're going to talk about supporting the whole picture, we should support the whole picture, not just right now, not just tomorrow, but the next day and the next day and the next day after that. So it's meaningful. It is. So until we do that, we're making a lot of decisions that are very impactful to our district. And again, a lot of which we'll talk about tonight, which are unfortunate and atrocious and hideous and awful, and go against everything I ran for the Board of Ed for, but in some cases might seem necessary. And so, again, I roll my eyes at the 5-year plan thing as well, because it's like, okay, great. It's to Jen, your point, or Madam Chair, to your point, again, things change. I'm sorry, I had to. Things change over time and leadership changes, but at the same time, you've got to do something. We've got to do something. And I don't know what that something is, but hopefully we can talk about it and figure it out finally in my 5th year on this darn board. So if we had started my 1st year, we'd be in the 5th year right now. And we probably would be in a better spot. And Dana's, I think, been on this thing for 6 years, so we're in the 7th of her. So it's just where we are right now, in my opinion, could have been avoided. And I hope we can take the steps to avoid worsening that situation leaving tonight. So again, do I have all the details? Not necessarily, but let's talk about it. So thank you. And thank you for clarifying a lot of that as well, all of you.
Yeah. I just wanted to echo, the desire to have more long-term planning, right? And let's be honest, a 5-year plan in like a business context is actually not a long-term plan.
Right.
It's actually very short-term, but that would be an improvement. What I was going to suggest is, and I certainly, feel this way from being like new to the board, is that there's probably things that we can do really as soon as this budget cycle ends to better prepare us for next budget cycle. And I think that those actions and maybe a stab at what a long-term strategy should look like should be referred to FCC for action. I think that those are things that we should recommend that FCC take on pretty quickly after this budget cycle, and bring to the board with some overall recommendations for what we can do as a board to get, I would say, better prepared. And one of the things that, I hear from the community is the need for more communication about this process. And I think that, we do a pretty good job during budget season of communicating about it. But really, I think that some more spreading that out a little bit, so it's a little more digestible to ourselves and to our community, I think might have some long-term impacts on voter perception and referendums and other support that we're looking for. I agree that I didn't even think that the 9-9 was good, right? That the things that were in it, there were still things that were left on the table that could really make our schools excellent. And I want us to have excellent schools. When I was elected to the board, I think we all met with Dr. Willett, and he asked what I wanted to get out of this experience, what I wanted, my legacy here to be. And I wanted to leave this place better than I found it. And so everything I'm voting for is with that in mind, right? Like, better isn't perfect, but I'm, comfortable with building momentum. I will say, and I've said this to members of my caucus in the last couple of days, I know that we're fixated on the percent change of the budget year over year. I It's been an average of 1.7. This, we're looking at options for 7.9, 6.7. Those are truly relevant numbers, right? They're numbers that get fixated on in the community, but most people who can quote them can't tell us what the total budget is or our expenditure per student. And those are the things that matter, right? Our budget year over year, which is supposed to be a measure of like your cost increase, which I understand has not kept pace with inflation, has not kept pace with the number of students in our district, has not kept pace with the increased needs coming out of a global pandemic. And frankly, means nothing to me. What means something to me is how are our students supported? And are there other metrics that we need to be looking at during the budget cycle in order to better communicate that? So I'll hop off myself.
Dana? Which really can
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I appreciate the conversation that we're having, and Dr. Wood, I appreciate you putting together the multiple budgets we have before us. Yeah, the 9.9 is unfortunate that was what was originally, or the 9%, whatever, that was presented to us originally. It's unfortunate that we're in the position that we are. As Jaden said earlier, if you look at that 10-year average plus, I mean, it's deplorable at best. It's the best word I can say, and without sounding doom and gloom, I mean, there was a 0%, 0.18%, really low percentages in the last decade, which has kind of put us in the place where we are. And to be blunt, that 9.9 or whatever is less than what we need, really. And because we've been put in such a deficit, it swung the pendulum, and we are where we are right now. We've talked about a 5-year plan. We've talked about different things. Yeah, and I even mentioned in our last meeting that this is, this is something that we're not going to fix as a Board of Ed as a whole. We're going to fix it as a community as a whole. And knowing what each community member and each board and commission member's charge is. And I know people get sick of hearing me say that we're here for the Board of Education. We're here to make sure that we have a flourishing school system. We're here to make sure that we have a competitive school system, that we are educating and supporting the whole student when it comes to clubs, activities, sports, curriculum, core curriculum, AP classes, UConn classes, all of that, so that when our students decide if they want to go to college, they want to go to into the military, they want to go to trade school, they have all the resources. We are a public school system, and we are charged, and we signed up to honor that and to do our best to support our students and staff and schools. There's nothing that I haven't said in the last 6 years that has changed the way I feel about that. I think what we need to do is change the ideas and the way around and how to provide that said strong school system. And I will reiterate too that a 9% or a 7.9 or a 6% or a 3% does not equate to a 3%, 7%, 9% tax increase, does not affect directly the mill rate. Just as much as we talk about, we were being creative, and I appreciate it, fundraising, different things. We need to be creative in all venues of town, all departments of town, the senior center, our transportation, our fire department. We don't have these conversations of fundraising and all those other departments. So again, I feel like the Board of Education, although we do have the largest budget in the town of Tolland, we are also taking the biggest concessions, and year after year, budget after budget, a referendum after referendum, and meeting after the town council and meeting after the town council, we are telling our kids, we are not fighting hard enough for our kids. We are not fighting hard enough for our staff. So yeah, can we put a 9.9 responsibly and be fiscally responsible today? Probably not. I definitely feel strongly about the 7.9. I think that we need to put pressure on our town council to utilize. I don't know how many of you were on the meeting last night, or how many of you look at the budget and the analysis that they did. There's over $15 million in different funds across Tolland. We're healthy. I think the percentage is supposed to be like 10 or 11% to stay healthy. These are already tax funds that we've utilized. We need to fight for our students. We need to fight for our staff, and we need to fight for our school system. We're talking about cutting staff. We're talking about charging families $350 to $400 per sport to save nickels and dimes on a full budget because we can't utilize other funds across the community to help support the entire community. The rhetoric of school versus these kids versus seniors versus all of that, it needs to stop, and Tolland needs to fight for Tolland. So I don't even know why we're even thinking about entertaining less than a 7.9. Right now, let's let our town council step up and do what they are charged to do. Look at the town council funds. Look at the town of Tolland funds and staff and fund all of their departments correctly. And I will reiterate that the Board of Ed is a town department for the town of Tolland. It's not the town of Tolland and then the town of Tolland Board of Education. It's the town of Tolland as a community as a whole. So although I appreciate you trying to do different numbers, Dr. Willett, I think that we're at the 7.9 that we talked about last week, that a lot of us probably got a lot of agita just getting with the 7.9. But when we're looking at some of the reductions that we've done, we are putting more costs and more burden on individual families versus funding our entire town. We are saying, okay, we don't want to utilize other parts of the town money because we want to save this group or that group or this group or that group with all the different departments we have. But we're okay taking things away from our students, our staffs, and our schools. And I'm just not okay with that. So I'm not in favor of entertaining any other budget other than that 7.9 at this point. And we need to task the town council to be creative to help fund our town properly. Thank you.
I got just a question on the line 16, the SAT stipends. So a reduction for that. How much of that is actually SAT stipend? Because you've got like 3 things in there.
Yeah, it's a roll up of a bunch of things. I have to look at exactly. I would off the top of my head say somewhere in the 10 to 15 kind of zone.
Okay.
We still would have another, we'll still try to find another way of doing it here.
Well, I'm just curious because
That ends up being the total amount for that line.
okay.
Whereas last time, the iteration you have in the booklet is not the whole thing.
Okay.
This one is almost, all of it, but I always try to find ways like the clubs. We did the clubs at $85
Right.
per child at the high school.
So I just don't know how many of you guys have like seniors, juniors in high school. Like the high school is offering eight SAT workshops this year. That's a big number. So I don't, that's why I was just kind of curious. Like clearly we are offering, we are helping, you know what I mean? I'm just saying that, like I said, I just was curious, like what kind of amount really and what impact is that truly going to have? Because if we're able to offer 8, I think we're doing very well for our high school students. Because I'm going to tell you, we don't offer 8 opportunities for them to take the ASVAB test. We offer none. So, or no training.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about the SAT.
Right.
And I have very strong feelings about the SAT and probably not in alignment with the College Board. And ASVAB, for military, it's kind of the stakes for that, they're kind of different tests, and I'm not justifying the SAT by any means. So I'm saying, ASVAB, we could, if there was a desire, we could probably come up with some trainings for that. SAT was chosen by the state of Connecticut as the standardized test for all schools. I'm not saying I agree with it, but it didn't choose the ASVAB for that. So they're like a little different, although I see the
Right,
point
no,
you're
and
making.
they're, and
But
like,
the
and they're
stakes
still an
of-
ACT too, which they're, you know,
And so I can pivot as you guys direct. I can go in any direction you want, and I'm happy to do so, because if people point out needs, I love fulfilling needs, so that's great. But just SAT, the state of Connecticut chose it because the high school kids wouldn't take the SBAC and refused to take it basically, and the scores were bombing. So they made the SAT your standardized tests, and now people say, oh, you get it for free. You don't get it for free. The taxpayers are paying for the SAT.
Yeah.
And it used to be outside of the school day. Now it's in the school day. I don't think it really is a good indicator of what a young person can do, but it is what they're locked into. So anyway, it's trying to get your young adults the best shot they can at the various placements and, secondary education, college education. And that's why you got it. And the reason it's so, there's so many of that type of thing, there's planning involved in the construction of what is provided. So there's a planning, thing, and then there's the execution thing.
right.
So they execute it, you pay the people to execute it, but
Yeah.
you also pay the people to plan it. But we can do anything you want. Like if there's more aspect desired, I'd be happy to help create more for that too. But that's why you have the SAT, very high stakes. The kids all feel probably really stressed about the SAT.
Right.
They're made to feel that way, and I think it's terrible, but that is where we are. So
I just wanted to kind of see like what kind of an actual impact is that reduction going to have? Because if we already are offering 8 just workshops, I mean, that's just the workshops. That's not even taking the test. That's not, there's other components to the SAT. So I just didn't know like what kind of an impact do you think that's really, going to have on their SAT stuff?
now you could ask our students.
I know. Like my kids aren't concerned with it at all. Like they actually think that the SAT stuff is amusing, but that's just my kids. So
Well, I think that now that colleges, especially this year, are going back to accepting SAT scores and requiring SAT scores, as opposed to last year where like a lot of schools became test optional and years prior they became test optional. I think that there's a lot more pressure on the SAT this year, because if you are able to do well on the SAT, you have a higher chance of getting into college, even if you got a C in honors geometry, but you got a 1550 on your SAT, which can be seen as really good. And SATs are just becoming more important now to make it quote unquote easier to get into college. I'm not saying that everyone's going to college, but as someone who is planning on going to college, it's very important for me. And I know that while I'm not attending those workshops, and I'm taking different steps to prepare myself, I know a lot of my friends are utilizing those, and they might not be utilizing all of them. So I agree that 8 is a lot, but I still think they're helpful. It's good to have them at different times, especially with junior year, how busy we get.
I will say that the workshops have been really good as someone who has attended every single one that's happened so far, and that many kids are going to them and participating.
thank you. Yeah, because I don't know. Because like I said, my kids have no interest in it. So,
I think there was 50 kids at the last young adults at the last session.
Okay.
So it is. I know it's well utilized. And one other thing I'll say about it is some families, have the funds to send the kiddos to Princeton Review or whatever it is today. I don't know. That's but this is an equalizer because all kids can benefit from it versus the ones who otherwise would have to pay. So for Tolland, it's giving the young adults in the community whose parents couldn't afford some specialized stuff an opportunity to have some SAT prep, that they otherwise wouldn't have. So that was the thinking behind it at its inception.
Just to clarify, so by reducing, and I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I got this right. By reducing that line, whatever the SAT stipends covers, is that discussing anything to do with the 8 workshops that was just mentioned, or is that a completely separate?
No, the line will affect it. The thing that I used to drive Mr. Bodie crazy too. I will always try to make it work. So for instance, if someone said clubs are going to be completely gone, well, they weren't completely gone, but what really happened is the parents took on a massive burden, right? I'm not going to let anything completely die, but what's happening more and more is the parents of the community are taking on more and more and more and more. And as we reduce other things, as we talked about before, our administrators can't lead, we have to manage. So it's just the things that we're working, on. The teachers are working very hard, as we know, and the staff, all the staff, paras, secretaries, custodians, everybody, nurses. Those of you who have been on the board know what the impacts have been over the last few years. You see our nurses struggling, and we're trying to help, ameliorate that. These are all the reverberations, right? Now, did nursing end completely? No. Do we have major gaps? Yeah. Are we trying to fix it? Yes. Will everything end completely? No. Might there be a cost or some limited exposure to it because of there not being, what we could have otherwise had? Absolutely. Do we have clubs and activities? Yes. Does it cost the parents a lot more? Yeah. Almost triple. So it's just what kinds of things have to happen in order to make those things to stay alive. I will say this, the community you're in, that $22,000 was donated for your clubs. This community stepped up. Having said that, with everything going on, I don't know if the community can continue to step up every year in that way. So I'll always, continue to work to try to make things happen, as will many well-meaning people in the community. But the impacts are real whenever we make any kind of adjustment.
Thank you. And I mean, I guess on that topic, we are putting a lot of financial burden on parents, on families, sometimes on students who don't necessarily want to tell mom and dad how quickly they went through their lunch bank account, like I did. And so that burden then quickly shifts to who? Our students. So we're adding a financial burden when it comes to the SAT. So that's, I guess, sort of outside of school operating hours, but also related to what they do every day. We are taking more staff away if we do go with this proposal. But the biggest thing here that just raises some alarm bells for me, because I'm kind of mind blown that we're at this point, even though I might have to consider supporting it, which is mind-boggling. We're eliminating TMS pay to play would increase to a certain number. I don't know if I'm allowed to go into the specifics on these two lines. Yes, possibly. So we're going to increase pay to play by another $100. We increased pay to play last year by how much? I believe $100.
I think 50 I'm sorry. No, I think it was 50 for
50
TMS
for
and
high
VHS.
You went
I think it went from 250 to 300 to 50 last time.
Okay, so we're at about $150 in extra expenses.
No, just to clarify,
Yeah.
your 7.9 budget is different than the 7.67 you're considering. So pay to play at the 6.7 takes a massive hit.
And that's what I'm
Just to
discussing right now.
clarify,
So-
the one that you have for, the booklet does not have that.
Correct. So right now, what I'm discussing is the 6.7. It was sort of just off of Dana's point a little while ago, just made me think of these reserve funds and all these things. That needs to be a discussion at our joint meeting. That needs to be a headliner, in my opinion. But what we're doing right now is we're increasing the cost of pay to play. We're increasing the cost of additional support for SAT preparation. We're increasing the cost. Some kids aren't getting computers, and are they getting can they afford computers at home without the support from this board right here at a fraction of the cost per house, per family in this town? At this point, we are making folks, in my opinion, and I'd be very curious to do the math on all of this. It seems like with all these cuts, more money is going to be spent out of people's pockets than whatever tax increase, whatever, even though the mill rate discussion has been debunked and when it's related to the Board of Ed and all these things. So I'm a little concerned when it comes to, and Elaine, I appreciate you asking that question because it just made my brain just start spinning in terms of what does this actually mean? Is this additional cost to families? Well, it is. It is. These things that our students benefit from to help them become contributing adults. I'm just not understanding why we keep doing this. I mean, again, if I want my child, $400 to play sports, when 2 years ago, it was what, $250, right? If we increased it. I'm just having a hard time when in reality, if we take a bite out of the hole for 1 year, 2 years, whatever it is that is necessary for the Board of Ed to push through, And yes, that might mean an increase in this and that. Odds are that's going to be minimal compared to this $150, especially if your child plays in fall, in winter, in spring. And then what are they doing in summer? Shoot, they might be playing with us in summer for however much money that costs, which I don't know the number off the top of my head, but you're adding their summer leagues into this as well that we're not taking into account. So I'm having a hard time with this, folks. And will I, in the name of compromise and understanding where we're at, possibly come around to supporting it? Sure. And I look forward to that discussion tonight. But I just wanted to make it clear that, I mean, the Chromebooks, we're adding more financial burden to families than we would if we just supported our budget. And again, somebody can prove me wrong with the math somewhere. I look forward to it. And maybe I can get the figures and just do it myself. And maybe that's something Dr. Willett will talk to you about, just getting how to map that out. But after hearing that answer, I'm not sure why we keep doing this whole rigmarole. And then my second thing, so there's that. My second thing, I think the idea of engaging the town council, engaging other departments and looking into them as thoroughly as the Board of Ed is looked into. We are the largest department. I get it. Understood. You got it. Same thing has been said for 4 years, going on 5 years now that I've been here. But how fair is it that, again, our most vulnerable population right now are the children? I mean, two of which are sitting right in front of us, talking to us about their personal experiences with SATs. In previous years, their personal experiences with clubs. In previous years, their personal experiences with teachers and classes and course offerings and sports and athletics and all. I mean, we hear it directly every week. We hear it indirectly because I don't have children, but many of you do have children in the school district. And this affects everybody in different ways, some people more than others, obviously. So I think there's 2 points I'm making right now, which is I don't think these cuts are worth it in terms of what we're doing to people's pockets outside of our tax increases. I also don't think we have engaged the council enough on these reserve funds. And I think it is worth investigating and looking into further. I just can't understand how I'm seeing a $3.99 to pay to participate on my screen while we do have some of these funds available from the town council. So again, where we are right now, we can't rely on those funds. So does that impact my vote? Absolutely. And we are where we are right now. But again, moving forward, this relates to my point about the long-term planning. We've got to discuss this somehow. I'm glad we have a council in the room that is sort of engaging with this process and getting an understanding of how difficult of a position we are in right now. So I'm just repeating myself at this point, but this is frustrating. And I think we're making people pay more money than they would if we just went through with the budget that we proposed to begin with. The superintendent proposed to begin with, whatever.
You all set, Jaden?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in.
Did you see?
I do, but I'm gonna jump in too. Sometimes people say I shouldn't wait till last, so
I'm just.
I gave everybody a couple times.
I'm not suggesting.
Yeah, no. That's just why I'm jumping in, and then I'll get to Dana again after. I just want to say that I agree with everything that Dana, Mackenzie, and Dana have said. Especially, points that, I wrote down. Jaden is certainly correct. And Elaine, I think you touched on it too. I mean, the things that we've done, in the past couple cycles, as well as the things that we're discussing this time. It is putting an increased financial burden on parents. And again, obviously it's very hard to say what the mill rate will be or what it was, but in a lot of senses, a larger increase would have still been less for what parents have been paying already in the extras. So I recognize that, and that certainly don't like it. And then, Dana talked about, our charge as BOE members is to do what's best for students. And I'll include staff in that, and that's correct. I also believe, the town does have funds. And I think that I'm hoping that after discussing this, I feel like this will now be, the 3rd or 4th budget cycle discussing this. I'm hoping that they find ways to it sounds like once things get into the unassigned funds get into the unassigned fund, it's stuck there. There seems to be so many reasons why they can't utilize that money. We heard more of them, I feel like 2 nights ago in the capital budget meeting. So hopefully they find a way to not funnel so much in there, not funnel so much surplus into the unassigned fund and use it directly back to their departments. I also agree with Dana's point, what we do here and the number we choose here does not necessarily mean that's a tax increase. It never does. And to the point that Jaden's making, the town council has to review all of their town departments and decide what is best. And we are the largest department. I'll also say that we have the largest amount of customers in town. So there's a reason why we're large, and there's a reason why we take up the bulk of the budget. That's what happens in every district. The reality is that I didn't feel good about what we set forth the first time last budget cycle, or I don't know how many times did referendum fail, 3 times after that, plus or minus one, which was also, the first cut, which I will say, we're putting a lot of heat on the town council. The town manager also does propose a budget, and he includes a percentage for his department. So that's actually the first thing the town council reviews in the process, to be fair. When we talk about our charge about what's best for students, as I said in my chair report, I started this endeavor thinking that I was going to be able to make big changes and fight. And I did, and I fought. And hopefully we made some headway on some things and we didn't on others. But right now we're at a place where I haven't felt like, in terms of budget, we've done what's best for students at all, because every time we talk about a budget recently, we're reducing something. And that reason has never been because the kids don't want it or need it. So we haven't been doing that for quite some time. And we still continue not to do it. The 9.9 didn't do that. The 7.9 doesn't do that. The 6.7 doesn't do that. I guess where I am is that I have watched now, cycle after cycle, what happens every time we don't have consensus in this room. It's discussed by the town manager publicly, it's discussed by the town council members publicly, and then it's discussed by the public. And it's always talked about in a way of one party's trying to drive things up, and they're not caring about a certain population, right? And the other side is the same thing. And we go through that year over year. And I've never been a numbers person. I've never made decisions based on numbers. I believe we base our decisions on student needs. As I've already said, I've now started looking at what won't hurt them the most instead of what can I give more to them for what. Every time we go through referendum in the past, we've lost more. And that has been very debilitating to me. So I'm trying to think, how do we get people here to pay attention? How do we get people behind us, in which I think we all feel like this process just doesn't work? We have to, as a town, find a better process for this, which I said in my chair report, and I've said countless times, so I won't keep reiterating that sentence about the burden on taxpayers on property owners. So I think that, unfortunately, with the year after year after year of the low amounts that we've been given, we're in a hole. And now mostly everything we ask for are these large numbers. And like I said in my chair report, I think we all do understand that can't translate to a tax increase of that nature, of that level. But I'm trying to, what I'm trying to do is to think of the ways, like with the SRO and with security and with possibly the tech. Last year, we brought 2 options to the town council as well in a joint meeting. What are specific things we can ask our town to use the taxpayer money that we already have to help fund us, to get us out of this place? Because I don't think anyone wants to be in this place. Last year also, we adopted a budget, and in the joint meeting, several people who voted no for that said that they would have voted for something just a little bit lower than that, right? So it's tough, because I think that everybody does understand that we're not in a place really where we can ask for a 1 or 2 or a 3. we see what that looks like. We're seeing what the reduction looks like, but we also see what the numbers look like when we don't reduce those things and we're asking for a 9, an 8, a 7, or a 6. So listen, I support the 6.7. I support the 7.9. I support the 9. I'm trying to get to a place where maybe we as a board can agree on consensus to something, and that can invigorate our community to focus on the work that we did. I mean, guys, we're in our 4th or 5th meeting, and boy, am I really grateful for the participation that we have. We don't have a lot of participation. So they have not, the community has not really seen our process. And I'm sure some of them will go and look at minutes, and I'm sure some of them will go and watch the video. I don't want to take that away from them, but I understand people are also very busy and they have a lot going on. So that's why when you hear me say that, Bill and I discussed with Dr. Willett, could we look at something in the 6s? That's why when, you'll see that I will vote for this 6.7. It's not because I want to take anything additional away. It's because I'm worried about what happens when we don't pass things. Right or wrong. I hope that you understand where my intentions are. I do not want to lose more staff. I do not want to lose more programs. And I'm trying to think of different ways we can go about this that helps that. That's all. Dana. Dr. Willett, can you unmute Dana?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, just a couple things that I also want to make sure that we're cognizant of. And I appreciate the SAT conversation. Thank you. I think it was Elaine who brought that up. I'm trying to go back into my notes here. My apologies, because I'm writing down things feverishly. Everybody's comments have made me stir up ideas and thoughts. So thank you. There's different sections because it breaks down each section of the SAT. But it's also a paid thing. So it's over $650 for family to have to pay for those kids. But nevertheless, the going around to these sections helps our students. And there was data that it increased 10 to 50% rise in scores just from a little bit of engagement with those workshops. And that came from data when I was at the rounds from the high school. So these workshops are phenomenal. Again, we're charging families for these. Right? When we talk, and the data shows that these workshops help. We talk about our seniors and pricing people out of town. And again, I want to reiterate what I said earlier, we're the town of Tolland. And I don't want this to be a seniors versus students. But we talk and talk and talk about not pricing people out of town. Doing things like we are doing with this budget proposal, we are pricing families out of town. Christina Plord, when I first started the Board of Ed in 2019, used to talk about the single mom with the 3 kids that needed to have a funded education because couldn't pay for tutoring, couldn't pay for extra books, couldn't pay for computers. And it was our responsibility to provide that. Now we're saying families, we're going to keep computers at TIS until we can no longer afford it. And we're slowly not going to be funding that. So now slowly our K through 2nd graders are not going to have an educational tool. We're talking to our sports families that, by the way, these students need these clubs and sports that help them build their whole education. Not only does it spark increase in your studies and your scholastic aptitude, but it helps with their mental wellness and then their preparedness for the next level. And we're asking parents to pay $300, $350, $399 for one sport. And then if they want to do more sports, that's $800. Now, if they have more than one student, now we're at $1,600. on the spreadsheet, it's $39,000. When you divide, I mean, I'm not going to do quick math, $39,000 in the grand scheme of our entire budget. Is that really pricing families out of Tolland? Pricing families out of our school district? I get very, very concerned when we talk about things like that. We want to make sure that we have an equitable and equal. We say equal, right? But it was more equity, right? Get an education for families in all levels of financial capabilities. Again, I feel strongly that we take this budget, we send it to the town council, and allow our town council to do what they need to do to help fund us as one of their departments, along with the senior center, along with our transportation department, along with our public works, along with our fire department. Let's not price any of our community members out of Tolland. Thank you.
It's okay, Joel.
I didn't know if you had
Sure.
a computer related.
There was something I wanted to show you, but Joel's.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I've been quiet the whole night, so I'm gonna speak. If you asked me 6 months ago, like, hey, Joel, do you think that this budget or this position of yours on the Board of Education is gonna affect you mentally? I'd probably say, nah. Right? If you asked me 6 months ago, we say, hey, do you think you're gonna be up at night thinking about why is this way? Why can't we do this? You'd probably say no. Am I complaining? No, not at all. Right? I know what I was tasked with. I know what the people who voted for me, what their thoughts and what my thoughts were. But I can honestly tell you that as we're working on a budget and we haven't even finalized our goals, I feel like a hypocrite. Right? When you look at the goals and the things that we say we're going to do and what we stand for in this room as a unit, i.e. the Board of Education, I feel like a hypocrite. All right. I know I haven't asked the data from you, Dr. Willett, and if it's there, I just haven't found it. But I'm curious to see how many of our kids that graduated last year from high school or in college, right? How many are in the military? How many got great jobs, right? And you don't have to provide that data for me right now, but I'm curious, right? And when I asked that question, granted, we got some smart, talented, very bright students in our schools, but they didn't do it alone. It didn't happen overnight. This is a process that started from K all the way to 12. All right. And the only way they did it is with what we provided them. Right. And, I don't want to sound callous or anything, but, my 30 years in the military, I worried about the mission of the ship, but I worried about the people that worked for me. That was my department. That's what I had a hold on. That's the people that I impacted. And that's the people that made sure that I looked good. All right. And I made sure that they look good. All right. So my job here in the Board of Education, whether it's a 6.7 or a 7.8 or a 9.9, this is my piece of the pie that I'm going to support. And when you look at 1.7, whatever it's been for the last 5 to 10 years, the 9.9 is scratching the surface. Right. So at what point are we going to get a little jump so that when we are in a bind where we can't do that again for the next 5 years, we can do 3. Well, at least, I'm dealing with some old shoelaces, and they're kind of broken, but I can still figure out the time. I know there's some silly analogies, but still, we got to figure something out. And as long as I'm here, and as long as I'm here representing the people that voted for me, and even the ones who didn't vote for me, I'm going to support the budget to the highest because I want to make sure that all those kids sitting right there are successful and everybody else. So that's all I got. Thanks.
I do have some information just to share with you. One is somewhat directly related to Mr. Lopez, what he just asked. I'll just quickly show this to you.
And then I can ask you, Madam Chair, if you want me to extrapolate on something else. This is the college acceptances for the class of 2025. So I don't have, this is just a quick to show. So I just put it up on the screen for everybody. The kids, if you think about a graduating class in the zone of the 180, roughly, these are all the schools they're going to. So vast majority more college matriculation, as you can see from the point of all these different colleges that they have got accepted into. So I'll post that information up there. And there was one other piece of data I can put up, but let's see if I have that. I can post it to the dashboard as well.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, I think that's probably just the fastest thing I can get. But do you, if you want, I can show you some information from 2017 that might be somewhat relevant to your conversation. It's from a presentation that was done in 2017, and it's just a little bit about budget impact, school impact on community. It'd take about 2 minutes if you want me to do that.
Sure.
Okay, so just listening to the conversation you're having, this reminds me of a presentation I gave almost 10 years ago called Tale of Two Tollands. And it's interesting, about 10 years ago. I haven't updated the data from that point in time. I would have to redo the survey. But at the time, about 1,100 people participated in a survey. And the survey was filled out by students, parents, staff members, and so on. And it was, you can see the breakdown of the groups here roughly. The vast majority were parents and staff and so on. And it was data about, when you talk about a school system, you're also talking about an industry in town. Like this is one of your largest employers. And then, when you have a large, kind of employer industry in town, where do they spend their money? And this showed in a matter of a month that very many local businesses were patronized by students, staff, and parents. And these were some of the local businesses in a month that were getting patronized by these groups. Also, 197 employees at the time and 65 coaches were spending their money in common. So it's money that you spend on the system, but then the system also spends money in the town, and it's somewhat sustaining. So as that system starts to diminish or get damaged, then the amount of money that is being spent in town is also less. And that can also affect everything. So when you think about kind of when you want something in your town, I remember when I was growing up, IBM and other companies were in town. And when those industries became smaller or left, local businesses were deeply impacted by it. So just, sometimes it's thought of as just something that drains. But if you have 197 employees living, in the town, spending money in the town, 65 coaches living and spending in the town and sub-spending in the town, and you have this many people patronizing these businesses in a month's period of time, those are all funds going into those local businesses that if this did not exist, none of that would be happening. So it's just something to keep in mind that it's not always just a drain. The system sustains the system. To some extent, it makes it possible to have the businesses that are there, that type of thing. And then just the unfunded mandates, the charters, and all of the things that impact your school system still impact them even more profoundly now. But it reminded me when we were talking, or when the conversation was talking, it's not always this one, there's the idea that it's always taking something, but it's giving back. I mean, it gives back a service that draws people to the town, because, you draws a lot of people to the town, and then there's tax money from that, but it also puts money back into your local businesses in town. So it's just something, 2-minute deviation. I hearing a lot about the drawing away, it really sustains as well and provides the diversity in town that you're looking for, a place to live sometimes. All right, 2-minute deviation complete.
I'll add.
Yeah.
I'll add by saying we agree on way more than we disagree on.
Absolutely.
So most of what is being said here, I 100% agree on. I also feel I've bit my tongue for 2+ years about what my charge is as being a Board of Ed member. So I'm gonna go share how I interpret my charge as a Board of Ed member. Yes, I feel my charge is to support the students 100%, but not just inside the four walls of schools. Also, when they go home at night to an empty house because mom and dad might have to work because our median income is 121,000, but there's just as many people below that as there is above that. I don't want kids going home to empty houses because mom and dad, or mom or dad, individuals, have to work extra hours because of what we do here. And I know not necessarily what we do here equates to what goes out to the community. I fully understand. But I just view it a little bit differently than some people. I want to support the kids. I don't like the cuts that we have to make either. Certainly not about that. I've been the first one to say I want to support people over positions. If the people are there, I feel like they'll figure out a way to get stuff done for our kids. But I also, I go back to just thinking that, I would rather put the extra 100. I've got kids that play 4 sports. So that $400 a month increase is going to directly hit my pocket. But you know what? My neighbor that doesn't have any kids in school, it's not going to affect them. And it shouldn't affect them. If I want to choose to have my kids play sports, it shouldn't affect them. So I'm okay with that increase in sports, and it's directly affecting my pocket. I'm going to pay $1,600 a year for my kids to play sports, maybe even $2,000 if the one plays a third sport. And I'll figure out a way in my household income to make that work. So, I just look at it a little bit differently. I certainly want to support the kids as best we can. And we've got to figure out a compromise between the two. And I think that was the driving force to ask Dr. Willett to bring this 6-7 to us, because I look at that as a compromise. It's certainly a little bit higher than what I would feel comfortable, but I also know that it's a little bit lower than what you feel comfortable with. And, when we're in positions like this, compromise is in the middle somewhere. We're not all going to get what we want. We've got to figure out what is palatable for all of us, and feel comfortable in putting forth up to town council. That being said, I don't think we're in a position to swap items between the 7-9 or the 6-7. I think it's one or the other. I think that's got to be the result of this meeting. It's one or the other. And, while I support the 6-7, I'm certainly not going to be upset if the 7.9 is what everyone chooses to put through. I think one of the things that I'm most proud of this board, for those of us that have been here for 2+ years, is that we have that respectful dialogue. We don't get upset at each other. We don't snap at each other. We calmly discuss. Sometimes we get a little animated and heated and talk over each other and have to be brought back into place, but it's not out of being disrespectful to each other. It's about, healthy conversation and healthy debate. So I truly hope that, we can continue that regardless of this, because we've got another one of these to go through, next year. This is only the beginning for this board. So, I just keep that in perspective that, yes, we all want to see the best for the kids. We certainly do. And we've all got a little bit different way that we look at it. That was it. Jane.
I am. And I appreciate that point, because again, it highlights everything we're talking about perfectly. As a kid who, as a guy now, weird, who as a kid who went home sometimes to the empty home. Why? Because mom's working extra hours to make sure I can go on my DECA trip, right? Mom's making, extra money to make sure I can pay to participate in DECA, right? Because the support isn't always there. The same thing can be shared on the opposite spectrum of what you just said. And you know, most of that was related to sports. But what about the students in the clubs and the sports together? This conversation can go both ways. And I think that's where at some point we're going to have to figure out where is that middle ground, because again, what the impact is per family versus what the charge is in addition to pay for pay to play. I think it's a fair conversation, especially with the neighbor conversation that they don't have children in the school district. But again, I say this from a perspective of, you know, I was the one getting, you know, dropped off by my brother at home. He's going doing his thing with his friends after football and this and that, and I'm getting home to, oh, mom doesn't get home till 9 o'clock from working in Manchester tonight. Why? Because, well, Jaden's got these DECA fees that add up to multiple thousands of dollars every year, and taking into account how much fees are going to cost now, taking into account how much pay to participate is going to cost now, I don't see it getting any better. And so I appreciate the points you just made, especially about, you know, the fact that we're all, and again, this is a respectful conversation. We'll probably have a respectful conversation tomorrow at baseball. We're throwing baseballs at each other. But again, though, that conversation can go both ways. And so I just wanted to get that out there again, because it's just a different perspective. So again, for everybody watching, for all the board members that are listening, and for our students and our counselor and my best friend Lisa over here, you know, it's easy to acknowledge that there are two sides to every story here, and we've got some difficult solutions to get to by the end of tonight. And we are already almost 2 hours into this summer. So again,
Which is supposed to be a 30-minute meeting.
yeah, well, you know,
Who said that?
that's fake.
I started that.
Oh, you okay? All right.
Oh.
Mackenzie started that. Listen, we can make that reality. But the truth is, to that point, who knows? Next year that could be a reality. If we've thought things out, you know, my thing right now is I'm not willing to concede the fact that, again, I think a 7-9 serves our district better, our school district, the schools, the students in the schools, our staff, and homeowners in this town as well. And that includes parents and some children live with their grandparents and et cetera, legal guardians. At the same time, I can get behind the idea of, okay, where are we right now? We need to get to, if that means we can have a unanimous vote on a 6-7 with the idea of, okay, what's next? I'm not willing to pass a 6.7 and get rid of, increase the pay to play another $100, increase keep club fees as high as they are, get rid of more professionals in our building if there's not some sort of educated estimate as to where we can go from here. And I'm not just asking for that commitment from the board of this board. I'm asking for that commitment from the council, sure. But the town manager, it's really frustrating. After last year, we were told our meetings don't get watched. So for those of you who are new to the boards, last year, what I heard while watching the budget proposal from the town manager was that he didn't consult, he didn't really pay attention to the Board of Ed meetings. There was minimal consultation as to why these decisions were made and all these things. And that's frustrating, because we spent 5 hours last week until I left here at 12:10 a.m., which I would do again in a heartbeat because it matters, just to not be listened to. That's frustrating. And I'm going to keep being frustrated about that, even though I'll try to maintain my composure this time around. And so, look, right now where I am is I need a commitment, not just from the council. And I think, Jen, you made the point of there are a lot of good counselors on that. I'd argue all of them are good, decent people who are just trying to do a good job. But they receive a budget proposal from one person. And this is not somebody who we can't ask questions. We can't ask to, hey, could you hop on one meeting out of the 4 we've had, 4 weeks in a row, by the way, or whatever it's been at this point, 3 weeks. It feels like 16 weeks in a row. 4. There you go. Confirmation. So, you know, I need some sort of sense of commitment, and we can't get that tonight. I think that's where I'm most lost right now on what to decide here, because we can't get that commitment from the town council, because there's governance that takes place and conversations that have to take place as well. So I don't know how to express what I've expressed any more clearly, but I think we need to start having conversations about are the folks who are presenting this information to the town council doing so with all the information that we have scoured over the last I want to say it's been 20 hours of our lives in these meetings over the last 5 weeks, right? Whatever it is. Because otherwise it's not a waste of time. But what it is it feels like we're speaking into the void. And after being on this board for 4 years, and you mentioned it, especially the last two, they seem very productive and we started to get somewhere, and then you just hit a brick wall where none of it reached the town council. They didn't get any of the information that we discussed in this room. So where I'm at right now, and I don't like any of these cuts. It just as Bill mentioned, I don't like any of these. And I know he just mentioned he doesn't like any of these, and I don't think anybody in this room likes any of these. Where I'm at right now is I don't like these cuts, but can we somehow make an arrangement where we can ensure that the town manager's actually digesting this information, number one, but number two, that this information is reaching the town council from an objective point of view, not through a point of view of, well, here's the number I like. That's not helpful. That's not helpful. So hopefully I'm making my sense. Last year I was a little more animated than this year. So I hope, I was able to compose myself a little better, but again, it's exhausting doing the same thing over again and smacking our face against a brick wall. So in order for me to be at 6-7 tonight, I think I need to hear some sort of idea as to how we can engage with the town manager better as a board, but also as the town as a whole.
So, wait, I'm sorry.
No, it's really, yeah.
Do you have something off of that?
Yes.
Because Dan, it's up to you. You definitely had your hand up first, but Elaine just wanted to rip off something Jaden said. So I just want to check with you. I don't want to give up your time.
Give a thumbs up.
Okay. Go ahead, Elaine.
Thank you. Really, really quick. I don't know how we can really give you that commitment other than that.
Right.
I think if we can do a unanimous vote, if we can all agree to like the 6-7.
Sorry, I'm laughing at 6-7.
I know.
Yeah,
it's so much-
I knew.
I'm just gonna sit here. But if we all.
I'm focused, Elaine.
Because then that sends a very clear message to the town council
Yes.
and to the town that we as a team have said, this is what we think is the best we can do. And we're not throwing this, it's a 9.9 is a big chunk. I know we're trying to play catch up. I just don't think we can catch all of it up year one. I think this is a year, this maybe is an opportunity to catch up with 6.7, versus 9.9. So maybe that gives us a chance to catch, a little bit, to bite in a little bit of the hole that we, have managed to dig ourselves into year after year after year. So maybe, would that maybe be, you know what I mean? Like, would that suffice as a sort of a commitment for you? That's all my question was.
Can I answer that? Is that a?
I know, I'm sorry, Dana.
No, that's okay. Yes,
It's
you can
quick.
answer that. I think Dana's okay with the conversation.
Gotcha. Dana, if you feel free to interrupt me when you want your time. I talk a lot. I don't know what that looks like. Again, though, I think that's why after passing through the 7-9 last week, my mind was dead set on, all right, well, we're going to get to next week. It might go down to 7-8, 7-7, 7-6, 7-5, 7-4, whatever, somewhere in that range, going down to 6.7 without any dialogue of how do we make that happen is difficult for me to digest in one night. And especially receiving this information, a large chunk of this earlier today when I was running around. And so, but again, our leadership is working hard on these things all day throughout the week and all these things. So I don't want to discredit any of that. So I'm not going to lie to you. This is the most befuddled, there's a word, that I've been in this, it's the most precarious situation I've been on the board, not because of, what we're cutting and this and that, but because of, again, I would like commitment. I would like commitment from, again, not the town council only individually, but the town manager and the financial officer person. I don't know what position that's type. Finance director. There it is, Mackenzie. So I could, if we were to discuss, okay, if I could gauge where everybody is tonight and see, all right, can we get behind a 6.7? But then after that, could we add something to the discussion for a brief 10 minutes of, okay, what do these next steps look like? Instead of just passing something through tonight and hoping something sticks to the wall of, okay, this could work, that could work. What could it work? Could it work? Has it worked before? All those things. So I can get behind something if we are all going to send a clear message to the town council and the town manager that we're aligned in this. We agree with each other on, okay, this isn't perfect, but But we need you for the next part of this. And there's a second half to this discussion that doesn't just entail 9 of us in here or on air. So Dana, I'm sorry for taking up more time, but hopefully that answers part of your question a little bit, a little bit. I know not really, because I just talk in circles.
Okay, now I'm gonna go to Dana.
I'm sorry, Dana.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. No, I'll always yield the floor to a productive and good conversation, and that was definitely one. So I definitely think with our Robert's Rules of Order, it's hard sometimes to have a fluid conversation that you and Elaine just had. So I think it worked well, and I think we were able to understand some more. So of course, I will always yield the floor to that. Couple things I have a question for. Dr. Willett, pay to play right now for TMS is 300, THS also 300, or is that 350?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, and we're suggesting with the 7.9 to raise it to 399, or is that the 6.7?
No, the 7.9, you keep it the same.
Okay, and the 6.7 was 399, right?
Right.
On the 6.7, what is the family cap?
That would have to be raised significantly.
Right. So, because I guess my question is, but we don't
Yeah,
have a
definitely.
number for what those family caps are.
Yeah, I mean, this would be well above that 1,000 something, because if you don't have it like that, then you negate the impact of the revenue that you're taking.
Agreed. And that's kind of where I'm getting at, right? So the family cap is what, 900 right now?
I think it's 1,000 something now. It would go up to much, more. It would go up to more than that. Yeah.
So if it's 1,000 something, let's just say 1,000. So if it's 1,000 something, and you have a family with 3 students, let's say, and each of those students plays 1 to 2 sports. So let's just say they play 2 sports. When you've paid for the first sport for each of the students, the next 3 sports are free. Round numbers, just really quick. I think I'm off by $100.
Right.
So no family is paying the $1,600 that was mentioned earlier, because you're already well above that cap. And then I guess my question would be, is if we're increasing it this much, because we're saying we're going to save $67,122 on the budget, or we're going to reduce, I should say, not save. We're going to reduce the budget by $67,162, but then we raise the cap. We have the cap $400. But our cap currently is at 1,000. How much are we really saving the 67,122, or we're really only burdening the families that have 1 or 2 students that play maybe 1 sport? So again, if we're going to talk the numbers, let's talk the numbers, right? There's no family that's going to have a $1,600 sports bill, because they're already over the cap. And we say they're going to pay the cap. So unless the cap is at $1,600, it's not. So I'd really like to see some more breakdown of what that looks like. Again, I'll go back to pricing families out of the town, and we're talking about kids going to clubs and after school activities. So when our parents are at work trying to pay for these additional activities, or that we should have in our public school, because our public school is a social contract that kids are offered to get a free and equitable education, but is paid back as an adult. But if we have all these other activities that we're raising year over year over year to save $67,000 on this line item, for instance, we're not having a fair and equitable free education. We're saying it's a free education with quotes and, funny years. So, and have all these other fees behind it. I think we need to be cognizant. I know we keep talking about working together and compromise and concession and this and that. But again, I know we need to continue to fight for our free and equitable education. And yeah, some parents may be able to afford that cap, may be able to afford that $1,600. Some parents might not be able to afford the $400. So now you have that family or that single mom that can't pay for her 1 student, or single dad that can't pay for his 1 student to play that 1 sport. that actually gets his wheels turning in the classroom, that actually plays that one sport that keeps him out of, like, we used to have latchkey kids. We had latchkey kids growing up. We would go to the after school program, right? That kept us out of getting into riffraff, kept us out of getting into trouble, kept us out of, it kept us, we had a student teen center. We don't have a teen center here. So these clubs and these activities that when you have those single parents or those single families or those families that have multiple jobs, maybe they're not a single family, maybe they're a family of two adults but still work multiple jobs or work jobs in the evening. Now we're just taking away equitable resources. So again, I was elected and I have always been in my charge, and what I've sworn to do was to fight for an equitable education, public school education for Tolland. And none of this sits well, really. And the only people that are conceding and the only people that are reaping the negativity of us reducing are the two students that are sitting facing the horseshoe, and the other, how many students we have in our school system, Dr. Willett, right now, 2,000, give or take. Those are the people that are being impacted. So I think we need to, again, utilize the funds in our town. We need to hold our town manager accountable and our town council accountable to budget appropriately and wisely and utilize funds that we have in town. Again, I think we need to look at what this pay to play, how much is this really saving us, or is it really costing our families more money in the long run? Because what it'll save in taxes, it's going to increase in their pocket. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Mackenzie.
I just, want to go back to what you were talking about, Jaden, and I can appreciate the need for some level of commitment, right, from our town council, our other elected officials, our town manager, who is not an elected official, and ultimately with the budget process we have here in town, plus we change the charter, requires a vote every year, right? And so, I think that those assurances that you are desiring are admirable, but they won't come tonight and they won't come from anybody in this room, right? I will say, right, I've been on, some other kind of volunteer boards before, and I really think that we can and should strengthen what we're doing in committees. Committees are not for reporting out. Committees are not for academic or philosophical conversations. Committees are where we're supposed to get some work done and bring it to the board once we've flushed out some recommendations. And so, I strongly advocate that the next budget cycle doesn't begin next January. It begins March 1st, right? That, our charge is we're elected into these positions all year long, right? And the budget is such a huge part of what we do. We start right away on the next day. And, I'm certainly committed to, as a member of the FCC committee, and the negotiations committee of, doing that work, right? And rolling up some sleeves and figuring out what we could do to be more proactive, to be more knowledgeable about our budget, to shorten this process, to do all that. I'm willing to put the work in, and I'm sure that my fellow committee members are too, and that goes for all the other committees, right? Curriculum doesn't only happen in the summer, right? It happens all year long, and we actually have policies that we need to go right? We need to go get to work in those committees, and I appreciate all of the comments from folks today, especially from you, Bill and Elaine. Right, I think that we do agree on far more than we disagree on, right? I think that we all interpret and internalize our charge, and these positions may be slightly differently, but I think we all want what's best for our town. And I'm certainly willing to compromise in the spirit of going in unanimously with our budget. I think that sends a really strong message to our town council, to our constituents, and like I said, I don't even think the 9-9 got us all the way back to good, right? And this is not a sprint, right? It's a marathon, and I appreciate that perspective, and I recognize that I was among the first people to be like, 9-9's not even good enough. What if we add this person? What if we add that person? We did not add either of those people. This was not a budget. But I certainly, when I weigh the options of what is more valuable for our community, I do think that going in aligned is more valuable in the long run. And so that absolutely has my support.
Jump in. Jaden, I think what you're looking for is a commitment to conversation, not a commitment to absolute change, because we're all individuals and the council is all individuals. It's something that's got to be under, but you're interested in a commitment to conversation about the screw up that all of this is.
Conversation more so than I think it came up a few years ago.
Right.
In extending that
Yeah.
for, yes.
So I think we have a unique opportunity because I see Chair Moran online. And not that he can speak on behalf of the entire council. And I know it's a little bit out of the ordinary, Dr. Willis. So if we're not allowed to do this, or if we need to take a procedural vote to allow this, you need to let me know. But I think if Chairman Moran could at least come in and say, I hear you. We acknowledge your request, and we will get it on a future agenda or of something of that nature, just to at least acknowledge that he hears our discussion, and then he's willing to listen.
I think your mechanisms for that are to bump up public participation to right now and to, in the agenda so that a person can contribute as part of the public. The other thing you could do is, so make a motion to move public participation at the end of the meeting right up to now, and then you continue your budget conversation after that.
Can I just ask who we have?
Or you can make a motion to suspend the rules to allow for a brief comment, right? And then you have to clarify that no board discussion would occur from that comment. You just have to suspend the rules to allow a brief comment. And the danger in not doing all that is you activate a joint meeting situation because you have elected parties talking in the same meeting. So this would have to be either part of public participation or a suspension of the rules to allow for a brief comment from which the board will not make any additional comments around it. It would just be hearing it.
And I will say that there have been a couple times where Tony and I were in a town council meeting and they did allow us to speak.
Right.
So it's certainly not unheard of. So I think that I would probably first entertain a motion to suspend the rules to allow for Chairman Moran to speak. Is that to make a
brief comment.
A brief comment.
If that is what is being desired.
Okay, so I will accept a motion for that.
Seconded. Mackenzie.
Okay, so we have Bill moved it.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mackenzie moved it. Jaden seconded it.
Spoke quicker than me.
Any discussion?
Go ahead.
Is that just for Chair Moran and no one else?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
And then by no,
There's no back and forth.
no, I don't necessarily need the back and forth. I appreciate him, speaking to us as it is. I won't take up more of his time. I more so mean, are we allowed to discuss what is said afterward?
We cannot engage in a back and forth.
Okay, so it's just the back and forth between the person that we're inviting in. Okay, thank
We're
you.
not having a meeting.
Now, that settles it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion? No. Okay, so let's vote. Joe?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Mackenzie?
Aye.
Jaden? JP?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Joseph?
Aye.
You're on.
Dana?
Aye.
So that passes. Dr. Willett, will you please unmute Chairman Christopher Moran?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. And obviously, thank you all for all the hard work the board puts into developing your budget every year. I know there's a lot of time and expertise that you all put into developing that, and it's definitely not lost on me. And I don't think it's lost on the council. Obviously, I can only speak, for myself. I can't speak on behalf of the entire council, but I definitely hear your frustration about reliving the same budget process every year, right? Like I certainly share that frustration. And I can say that I'm personally committed to trying to find a way to improve this process for our town. Jaden, I think you made the point of, trying to have some sort of looking ahead, right? Having a kind of longer term vision, longer term plan. And I completely agree with that. Obviously there's challenges because of, which were mentioned tonight, right? Changes in leadership, changes in membership of the council. But I think it's really important that we have that discussion. And obviously I can't tell you what percentage, the council will land on or anything of that nature, because we have an obligation to balance the town services with, real tax impacts on residents. But I strongly support exploring all possible funding sources to try to, make sure we can provide top-notch services to residents while also, and pertinent to the board, right, for students, while also being mindful of, tax impacts to residents. So I'd like to echo something that I think board member Fish mentioned a little earlier. I personally believe that our schools have been underfunded for years. And I, am concerned, right, that I want to make sure we're in a long-term sustainable path for our schools. We get correct in the right direction, but I also don't think that we can fix it all in 1 year. And so I think, what I'm going to endeavor to do on the council is to strive for, consensus as much as possible. I think to the extent that we can, as elected officials speak sort of together to the community, I think that's always the best, approach if it's at all possible. Right. But I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you all for all the hard work you do. And certainly I can tell you, I'm trying to keep up to date with everything you're all doing. And I look forward to our joint meeting. And again, thank you so much for all the time and effort you all put into it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, are there any final thoughts we want to share? Otherwise, what I think we do is we motion for a 7.9 and a 6.7.
I will just mention,
Go ahead.
I appreciate what we just heard. Because this has happened before, and maybe it's just because I've been on the board for 4 years now, and we've been through this talk about 5-year plans and this and this is where I am right now. With how destructive, in my opinion, our systems have been the last however many years. I'll only speak for how many years I've been on the board. As good as we try to do in that moment, I do think it's been somewhat destructive, right? Not somewhat. I think it's more than somewhat, but you get the point. So, in good faith, in good consciousness, if we can't get some sort of discussion added to an agenda, talk about it for more than 5 minutes, meaning the council, at this point, the council, and involving the town manager in those discussions, I can't vote. I can't participate in the processes that the Board of Ed is responsible for participating in if the council and the town manager are not going to do the same. And I feel like part of, we've talked about our charge a lot. Let's talk about the council's charge for a second. I feel like part of their charge is to discuss everything. Why? They cover everything. We are their largest department. We just talked about this. But if we can't get something in the next however many months, however many weeks, whatever it is, something concrete, something solid. Whether it's as an individual or policy chair, whatever it is, I can't in good faith do my job as a Board of Ed member, knowing that somebody, whether it's the town manager in most cases, unfortunately in the last 4 years, is not doing the job that I just put on public display that I'm asking for tonight. And so, and it's not just because I want it. I want it. So I deserve it. I get it. No, it's because this is how local government should work. It shouldn't involve politics. It shouldn't involve, I'm this, you're that. So no, we don't agree. No, it should involve discussion that I think everybody here agrees tonight. Discussion that can't just happen in this room. It's got to happen with the town manager, his staff, the council. So I just want to lay that out there, because if we don't get to a point where I will not vote to approve any budget next year, I won't vote to make one cut next year if we cannot get some sort of guarantee and let it be heard. Let it be heard. And I hope it's heard not just by, again, these poor folks who are volunteers, who are on this meeting, in this room, listening with an engagement. It needs to be heard by the town manager. And I can commit to, I will not vote to cut a single cent if this process can not at least get initiated. So for tonight, where we are right now, it's a very difficult spot. If I could get assurances tonight and not have a back and forth meeting and whatnot, and they could vote on it and approve it and all these things, if I could get it tonight, I would. But I can't get it tonight. I can't get what I want tonight. So I'm not going to beg and plead and, Mom, I didn't get what I wanted for Christmas. No, we have to figure out a way moving forward. So, and as frustrating as that is personally, I can guarantee I'll be a lot more frustrated next year if this is not engaged from the town manager level to the town council level to the financial department level. So I hope, and by the way, involving the Board of Ed in those discussions, because, it'd be nice to be heard as a difference. So I just want to make that clear. I am comfortable convincing myself to go down to the 6.7 budget increase. I'm not comfortable that includes pay to play increasing by another $100. I'm not comfortable that includes we're reducing the clubs again, even though it was in the original proposed budget for this year. I'm not okay with the fact that we're eliminating 2 more buses. I'm not okay with that. There's the fact that there's an extra burden on staff to take care of their insurance costs. I'm not okay with the fact that we're eliminating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 positions, 4 of which
Our people.
are people. So I'm not okay with any of these things. I'm not. And I can't be okay morally, but also to my duty. I can't do it. However, I'm in a position where I might have to, and that kills me. And I don't like being here, and I don't want to be here again. So what am I asking? I'm asking for at least a discussion to be had, not just once, but maybe twice, maybe 3 times, maybe 4, maybe 5. Maybe that 6th time we get invited to that conversation, hopefully earlier than the 6th time. So again, that's my commitment, is I cannot vote to cut a single dime next year if we don't see that engagement, not just from the council, because the council can engage in those conversations. That has to include the town manager, and it has to include the finance department. So that's where I'm at right now. That's where I'm at.
I think we're all in agreement with that, Jaden.
Yeah.
And we all want to see that cohesiveness between the town departments.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to run a town effectively when we're not in lockstep with each other at all. So,
Agreed.
Motion.
Okay.
Make a motion to pass the 6.7 budget as our Board of Ed adopted budget as given to us by Dr. Willett this evening.
Any discussion? Dana?
Hello.
You're on.
I'd like to make a motion for the 7.9 prior to the 6.7.
Fortunately, you have a motion on the table. Did you have a second to that?
She did, but there is
You did.
no discussion.
So now you're in the discussion point. You have to vote this down or revoke, the motion. But at this point, you're in a cycle of discussion and vote. So Dana could make the point, or Toby could make the point that she does not think you should do this one and instead vote on 7.9, but then you would vote
either pull that motion off the table or to vote it down, and then you talk about the 7.
Would you like to remove your motion? No. Okay, so we go
But
for,
at this point, you have to continue the discussion and carry out a vote on the motion of 6-7.
Dana, I see your hand up again. Oh, maybe she took it down.
Yeah, I couldn't hear what Dr. Willett said after I said,
We said that because there's a motion on the floor and it was already seconded, that the only options was to either revoke the motion or to continue with this one. And Bill is not revoking his motion.
okay, that's awesome.
Are we voting to vote or are we voting?
We're voting.
You'd be voting.
Voting on the
So it's like amends the motion. Those are our only options right now, I think.
Discussion or vote, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Thank you. Go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, I'm just gonna piggyback a little bit of what Jaden just said. I don't agree with a lot that's on there, especially when it comes to the sports and it comes to the clubs. As I mentioned before, my daughter's a swimmer and she gets a swim cap. I get a swim cap for $400. Yippee. You know what I mean? I'm not complaining, I can afford it, but I mean, there's other people who are not in the same situation I am. You know, but also at some point, it's kind of like, okay, is it even worth it for her to participate in school sports, or I just keep her in club year round, like she already does, and pay the $1,200 that I'm already paying. So I'm paying $1,600 a year for a swim cap, but at least at the other place, they give her a swimsuit and a swim cap. Granted, it's $1,200, but like I said, there's a lot there that I don't agree with. But it's because I'm disappointed with what I'm seeing. I'm hoping the town is disappointed in what we're seeing. And I agree with you 100% when it comes to the communication with the town council and the town manager. All those things need to happen. And I know I mentioned it within my own party. I said, I think we need to come together as a town council and a board of education and start doing, meetings with the town throughout the year. It's right when school starts, so people can tell us what their needs are and what their wants are, and where we're failing, where the town council failing, where the school is failing, and maybe that's something that I can, as being with Brian on not when at US Brian, but at his name tag. I know that, Brian. As far as being on communications committee, maybe that's something that we can talk with Dr. Willett to put out for next year and hopefully tie it over to the town council. But like I said, just back to, I'm not happy with a lot of the things that I see here, but unfortunately, I'm hoping that this right here pokes the bear and wakes people up, because as I mentioned before, I remember last year, I don't know if I mentioned it here, I know I was talking to somebody. I remember last year standing here at one of the budget meetings, and I remember seeing nothing but kids from the clubs. Right? I really didn't see any students here that were in sports that were affected. And I think this is probably a good way for them to come and say, I don't see why my parents have to pay $400. I don't see why my parents who work 2 jobs are not home, or whatever the case may be. I think this needs to be, out to the masses, and people need to see exactly what we're dealing with, and it's not just us making the tough decisions. So.
Anybody else? I guess I'll just say this. I'm just kind of reiterating what I already said. I would love to pass I'd love to pass a 20%. I'd love to pass a 9.9. I'm truly just hoping that maybe a level of consensus and compromise and the hard work that we show in this room. This board has been really great and really respectful to each other. I'm just hoping it can somehow make a difference. We've just lost too much, too many programs, too many staff, and I'm just trying to reach out to the community any way that we can, and hoping that maybe a united board can do that. I don't know if it can. I don't know if we'll be united on any vote, but I just want to explain that that's why I'm voting for the 6.7, not because I don't want a 7.9, not because I don't want an 8.3 or an 8.7 or a 9.5. I want a 20%. I'm only voting this in hopes that it changes something in the cycle. So I just want everyone to understand that. It kills me. Any of these reductions, it always has. It always will. I will continue to discuss them. I will continue to fight for us to get more funding from the town. I will continue to rack my brain for anything I could possibly think of that could change the way that we do this process. That is all I can humanly commit to. And I'm not just saying that to this room, I'm saying this to the community. My intentions are good. They will always be to do what's right for the schools. I don't like the rock and hard place that we're in. But I think that we are really people trying to do the best we can. And that's all. I'll leave it there. I'll go back to Dana again.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
I just want to be crystal clear where I stand. And I've been crystal clear since 2019, where I stand fighting for education. But we're talking, everybody's been saying consensus. I heard it come out of several people's mouths on the board tonight. I heard it come out of Chris Moran's mouth. And I want to know what changed from last week when we voted 6-2 for the 7.9 that passed for this week, where there's two people that can make a consensus towards the 7.9, but we're taking the 6 people to beg for consensus to the 6.7. That should be mind-boggling. We had a 6-2 vote in support of the 7.9 last week. There were 2 people who voted no. We had one person that wasn't there, one of our board members that wasn't there. Now, all of a sudden, this week, we did ask for some different reductions for Dr. Willett to propose so we could see the ramifications of anything less than a 7.9. Now we're saying consensus is what we need. Consensus to the town council, consensus to show the town. Well, it sounds to me like there was 6 people that were a yes for the 7.9, and there's 2 people that need to move the consensus, not 6 people the other direction. And I want people in the public who are listening to this online, people that are going to be listening to the meetings later. You're talking about compromise? People need to really take a big, hard look in the mirror and see who's compromising. Who's compromised year after year after year after year after year, and watch things getting taken away from our students year after year after year after year. I don't know what changed with those 6 yes votes against that 7.9 that all of a sudden everybody is on a high five with the 6.7. Because I don't agree with that. And I'm going to continue to fight for the students and the staff. And I'm going to continue to hold our town manager and town council accountable for responsible budgeting, fiscal budgeting, supporting all of our departments. This is not, there's 6.7. I'm telling you right now, there's not going to be a consensus. I am a 7.9. I'm a 9.9. And the only reason why Dana Philbin will vote no on a 6.7 is because I want more. Our students deserve more. They need more. Our whole town needs more. Our seniors need more. Our safety needs more. We're conceding and we're killing these kids in this. We're I don't want killing's a bad word. We're taking away things from our students in the schools, our staff in the schools, our people in the schools. We're taking things away from our town departments because we need to figure out how to be proper, but run a proper budget. We have 15 million in the general fund, and we're talking about eliminating employees. We're talking about cutting off, biting our nose to spite our face. So people are going to have $400 to pay to play. You got the families that are going to be able to pay for maybe one sport, if that. You've got the student who has the jazz club who is ready to leave Tolland Middle School that now is in the jazz club and doing the drama setups and is getting A's and B's in class. And we're cutting that because someone doesn't like the way a 7.9 feels, because someone feels like that they can afford $1,600 in pay to play. Well, how can that someone or anybody else on this board say what other people can afford? Let's bring it to the town council. Let's bring the 7.9 to the town council and let them find money to fund our schools and to fund our town departments. You will not have a consensus at 6.7. I'm telling you that now.
Go ahead, Gene.
So, and I appreciate the thoughts about, why did the numbers switch and whatnot. I should make myself much clearer, apparently. I came into the room tonight, not supporting 7.9, not supporting 6 or 7, 6.7. I supported 9.9. To Jen's point, I support higher than 9.9. We will never get to that point if we do not, good night. We will never get to that point, in my opinion, if we do not start somewhere. And all my effort is tonight is, and I take this as, it is my effort right now to make sure we engage with the council moving forward to create a plan, not just to pass a 3% budget this year or 2%. We're going to have to face an upfront cost at some point. 6.7 is a much higher budget than we've had in previous years. I can't stand the fact that, again, we're losing in pay to play. We're losing these 4 positions that are currently filled, even though it's 10 total positions. I can't stand any of it. And I don't want to take personal offense to anything in this room, because this is local government. This is what the deal is. This is what we have to deal with. And I'm going to keep dealing with it, just like I have the last 4 years, and like Ms. Philbin has dealt with the last 6 years. But what I can't do is stop thinking about planning ahead. I cannot do that. My job with working with children is not to, and it's 100, we've got 90 something children in our program right across town lines there in Manchester. My job every day is to think about my decisions today impact the budget a month from now. They impact my program 2 years from now. So I've got to take the childcare and education experience that I work with every day and apply it here, even though it pains me to do possibly more than anything. So the idea that I would support clubs being eliminated, Mrs. Bridge was my lifeline. She is DECA. I love DECA. I still go back and help them. Sports, all my students, all my little leaguers who were in the AAA championship winning Iron Pigs, they're now juniors and seniors in high school who are being impacted directly by this decision that I'm about to make. That doesn't feel good, nor do I want to do it. And I don't blame you, to be clear, Dana. I don't blame you for thinking what you think. I still agree with you with 98.73% of what you just said. I still agree with it all. Why? Because it doesn't feel like we're actually doing our jobs in this room when we constantly have to make compromises like this. So it is frustrating. It is frustrating that we are where we are. I just can't control where we are. I'm an individual. I am Jacob Fitzgerald Regisberg, and I'm proud of it. But what I can see between the lines here is that right now we've got one who would not support the 6.7 and up to 3 or 4 that would not support the 7.9. So the numbers are not accurate with what was just read. And I'm trying to be respectful as possible, because again, I completely understand. I don't want anyone to think Dana is out of line or is outrageous for what she just said. She is speaking facts, and she is speaking the truth, and she shouldn't have had to say what she just said just a minute ago. At the same time, we are where we are. And the fact that, again, our students are the ones being impacted by this, when we keep compromising, I hate it. But right now, we have never been so close to unanimity in terms of, let's get a plan from the council. And if not, guess how my vote is going to look next year when we're eliminating more similar positions to this, when we're in more of a dire situation than we are right now. Because even right now, we can float. We can put our life jacket on, and we can float, and we can make it work. But as this process keeps going, our life jackets unbuckle. We can't buckle them when we're 20 feet underwater. We're not going to come back up quick enough. And at that point, what are we looking at? And I won't even throw the options out there because they're not pretty. So at some point, we've got to be willing as a board to, yes, compromise number 1, but number 2, plan ahead. And if we're not willing to do both of those, then I'm not willing next year during this process to participate in the manner that I've participated this year, and hopefully asking somewhat thorough questions and thoughtful questions and sometimes surface level questions, but most importantly, voting. I will not vote on it if we can't, at least as a board, next month, the month after, keep urging. Again, the town council is one thing. I know those are good folks willing to do this, but urging the town manager to take part in this process from November
December, really December, January, February, involving us. We are his largest department in town. We've said that now numerous times. That's what I'm asking here. So this kills me tonight. And again, I want to reiterate, I completely agree with everything Dana just said. And I hope people do not twist her words as she's frustrated about, and she's going against. No, she's not. She's standing for what she believes, and I admire it. And that's what I've admired about Dana the last 4 years I've been on this board and the last 6 years of knowing her. So I'm only frustrated, not because of, Dana, your compassion. No, I'm frustrated because we are in the same situation again, and it feels like I'm being hypocritical. It does. It absolutely does. But I'm at a point of, again, what now? What next? Right? At that program, 2 kids just punched each other. Okay, what next? Are they still fighting? Hopefully not. How can we get them to come back together? What next? Okay, somebody just tripped on the sidewalk and 2 people walked by him. I'm not going to judge those people for walking right by that person. I'm going to go help that person and figure out what next. Do they need a Band-Aid? Do they need to go see the nurse? So I'm at a point of what next? And my first reaction, and the educators in that building who are much more educated, number one, but number two, much more experienced than I am, I'm sure they might take an approach as to what's next. We have a problem. We have to address that problem. What is next? And it kills me that I hope this wasn't taken as I'm angry with Dana. No, that's not what this is. Again, she's standing for what she believes. I don't blame her. Shoot. Good for Dana. And Dana, I appreciate you feeling comfortable enough with this group that you're willing to go back and forth with how you feel and where you stand. So that matters to me. And it matters to somebody who deals with honesty. If you can give it to me honest, man, I'll deal with whatever it does to my heart. If it breaks my heart, bummer. Get over it, Jaden. Get over it. We've got decisions to make here. So I appreciate the honesty that she just shared. I just had to make sure that everybody sort of understood where I'm coming from, because this kills me. I don't want to do this again. And I can tell you, based on what I've said tonight, I will not do this again next year if that second part to this formula does not kick in. So there you go. There you go. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at for now.
Thank you. I'd like to say first, on what you're asking that we do going forward, please hold us accountable to that. Please make sure that you
I hope the public holds us accountable to it.
right. But please make sure that you request. I'll happily work with you, as will Bill.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're the chair of policy if it comes to that. But just please ensure that if there are things that you would like to talk about, me, Bill, and Dana are on agenda planning for here. Obviously, Bill and I will reach over also to the town council chair and vice chair. Just make sure that you do so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
The second thing I want to say is that I agree with everything Jaden said, and I agree with everything Dana said when it comes to principal. These are my principles too. I don't want to cut. Like I've said, I want to grow. And we haven't been in a position to grow, and that's been extremely disappointing. I'm looking at what I can control in this room. I'm looking at what I can give the best effort as. I don't think that Dana intended to make it sound like this, but I certainly am not high-fiving anyone over anything that reduces anyone. I would never do that. And I don't think that she thinks that I would. The reason, that we looked at, that we had Dr. Willett prepare this to look at something else is, last week, the scenarios were a 4, a 5, and a 7. That's what we ran. And we ended up with even higher than that, right? We did also have a 9.9 on the table, so that's there too. So this scenario at 6.7, it's still higher than 2 of the 3 scenarios. So it is not a low point at all. And also, when I look at the data, I could just start rattling off the last so many years of budgets and what we've received. 0.78, 0.84, 0.12, 2.25, 3, 2.03, 1.46 last year. Having consensus at a 6.7 is huge, and it has never happened in my 4 years on the board. It is still a large number. It is still an amazing number to put forth for our schools. Does it give us everything we need? Absolutely not. Like I said, 20%. You guys want to vote that? I'll vote that. I'll have consensus with that too. So this truly is just about compromise. This is about trying to find something that will work. And I think that the intentions from all of us are good. But we do have to work. And that, for what it's worth, That's why this number was presented, and that's why I'm trying to get behind this number. It is not the lowest that we've talked about. It is not the second lowest that we've talked about. So that's it. Any other discussion for this motion that's on the table?
Yeah, one more. Yeah, I just have a clarification point that is not vastly important. It's just a semantic thing. But that doesn't go into.
You go first, please.
Just, it's not a big deal, but I keep hearing the kind of that it's department, that the board is a department of the town. It's not under 10, it's 10-240, chapter 170. You are your own governance agency. Your funding comes from the town, but the town manager in town has no authority over the Board of Education whatsoever. You only, it sets up a board for the governance of a education system, but it does not have oversight over that. So it does control the purse strings, which is really, for all intents and purposes, some level of realistic oversight. But the point is, you're your own governance body. You're not a department. A Board of Education is not a department of the town. You're your own governance agency under 10-240, chapter 170.
We've all said it.
I know, but thank you. No,
I'm not picking on you.
I know.
I've just heard it, but just sometimes I think people have that impression that, oh, well, just go over here and it'll change X, Y, or Z. It's not, that's not. You're also 10-222 is supposed to expend your appropriation entirely for the operations of it for education. Which includes your ERF.
I see Dana has her hand again. I just want to check with everybody else that hasn't spoken, but yet. Okay, go ahead, Dana.
Oh, I keep, it's our new security thing, sorry. You have to unlock it or motion bumpers.
This whole unmute feature is going to kill me tonight, Dr. Law. I'm just going to say that right now. I will say, just because I get passionate and get loud, if any of you guys have seen me on the side of a soccer field or a football game or whatever, it's just because I'm passionate. And I will reiterate the fact that, I respect every single person in this room and online that is speaking from, their truth. So again, I would be remiss if I didn't reiterate the fact that it was 6-2 last week. What's changed? But nevertheless, again, none of it is ever out of any anger or what have you. It's passion. It's passion for what we're doing. And the reason why we're all volunteering to do what we're doing is because of our passion for what it is. But with that being said, I just say, let's just call the vote and let's move on.
Dana, anyone else like to say anything this time? No. Okay. JP, we haven't heard from you. I'm not putting you on the spot. I just don't want to be remiss in checking in with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I was debating raising my hand and commenting. I have to admit, so one question that's been asked a couple of times, I sort of feel is at least partly directed towards me, in that I did vote in support of going forward with the 7.9. I will say that I felt last week, and I still feel tonight, that we can do better than the 7.9. And I'm happy to see some additional opportunities taken beyond that. That having been said, I'm really not nuts about the entirety of the 6.7. I have to admit, I'm not nuts about the personnel impact. I think to me, that hits a little harder than the pay to play aspect, in that I feel like the personnel impact hits the entire student population, while the intent of the pay to play is to be a little bit, more targeted towards the services people are using. One of the reasons I was okay with the 7.9 is that I knew that wasn't necessarily going to be the final answer, that we were going to get, I felt it was highly likely we were going to get asked to, take another run at it. And if the council chose to fund it at the 7.9, the fact that we do have these other budget vehicles available that sound like they're not necessarily being fully utilized. That troubles me a little bit too. That having been said, well, maybe I shouldn't say ahead of time exactly how I will vote, but I will say that if the 6.7 is passed, I'm a little concerned that the town council is again going to want us to sharpen our pencils, and we're going to be in a place where I think we've got to be prepared to, push back a little bit harder than we would have necessarily on the 7.9, if that makes sense. The 7.9, I feel like I could have taken that charge from the town council and, said, yep, okay, we're going to go back and sharpen our pencils. Versus the 6.7, I've got, I've got concerns there that there's definitely less opportunity for another go around for sure. So I think anyway, I'm just sort of stream of consciousness there. That's where I am on that. I could have voted for the 7.9 knowing we were going to get another go at it. I'm glad to see some additional opportunities taken. And I'll just leave it at that. Over.
Thank you. Okay, let's vote. So just to be clear, we are voting on the 6.7 to adopt as the Board of Education budget. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
We are voting on a budget that incorporates the reductions in the 6.7 tab. Yes.
Okay. All right, Gwen. Okay. Joel.
Aye.
Elaine. Aye. Bill.
Aye.
Mackenzie.
Aye.
Jaden.
Aye.
JP.
Aye.
Dana.
She's on mute.
She's up.
Nay.
And I am an aye. The 6.7 passes.
That means is I have to redo the budget booklets, so you'll get your updated budget booklets probably Thursday, Friday.
Do you have to print them? Like, can't you just?
I only print them if you ask for them printed.
I think you should just email them.
Otherwise, they will be digital. They're always going to be digital with links.
Right.
Yeah.
But unless you ask me for printed copies. Okay, so no one wants a hooks copy. Then your digital copies will be out probably tomorrow afternoon or Friday morning.
Thank you, tool.
Trees.
Okay, let's move on. Can we go to adjourn? I've got to see where we are on the agenda. Just give me 1 second to pull that back up. Thank you. Okay, so that moves us down to public participation. Okay, well, Dana can speak again at points of information. Okay, so public participation, you have a 2-minute limit. Please state your name and address. If you're online, please raise your Zoom hand. I will start in the room. You ready? That's
Hi, I'm Mary Rose DeBerrick, 37 Ryan Road. Not speaking as a newly appointed town council member, speaking as a parent, resident, taxpayer. I respectfully see all your faces, knowing that I believe you have done the best that you can do. So thank you. I think the sad part of all of this is that our community has learned to budget to a percentage, not to a program. So instead of saying, these are all the things that we would like to do, how much does it cost? And then can we afford it? We're often budgeting to, here's a percentage, what's in it? Okay, I'll go with it. And it's over and over and over again. How we fix that, I'm not sure. But I do know that I think it's important to always talk about our programs and not numbers. Don't start off with, this is a 6.7 budget. Start off with, these are the programs that that are going to cost six, or, this point. The other thing is, you're going to hear the public say, wow, you got 6.7%. That does not reflect what you all had last year by any means. So it's not more, it's less. So it's really the conversation. We have to start talking to each other about real conversation. I always say, don't use things that aren't transparent. If Dr. Willett could provide more information, I don't know how that could possibly be. People just don't understand it. And that's the hard part. They don't understand it. Therefore, we're not really budgeting to the best we can do for our families and residents and seniors. And I'm 60, so I'm a senior as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go online. Rebecca Risley.
Sorry, give me 1 second.
1 second. We're trying to unmute you, Rebecca.
Here we go. Go ahead.
Just to see her now.
Hey, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Rebecca Risley, 103 Mountain Spring Road. First of all, I want to say thanks to Mary Rose, because she so eloquently said a lot of things that I would have loved to have been able to put into words. So I think that having the conversations is extremely important. And I think that definitely gets lost in the numbers. And when it's just looked at as numbers, we really lose sight of what we are trying to truly accomplish. But that wasn't the main thing I wanted to say. So as a parent of a current junior, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate that the Tolland schools provide the SAT prep courses that are teacher-led. They're teachers that the students are familiar and comfortable with. There are, to clarify, there's 8 courses. Each aligns to a different section of the SAT. So students have the option to take all of them or pick and choose which areas they personally need to strengthen. And we are going through this currently. So it's, a good experience that we're having so far. A recent Coffee and Connect with Principal Tolland, which, by the way, is a great way to get first-hand information about what's happening at the high school. So those happen about once a month. Encourage any parent of a high schooler to attend. But that he shared recently that taking those courses has shown to increase a student's SAT score 10 to 50 points on average. So many families can't afford the $650 for an outside SAT prep course, or the travel to attend one, or fit it into a student's busy schedule. And that's on top of $300 per sport, $85 per club, $150 or more per month just for lunch, $85 a year for class dues. And I can go on and on top of what we also pay in taxes to support all areas and departments in Tolland. So eliminating the service would be detrimental to a large portion of the school population, in particular students and families that benefit from it the most. And I just want to close by saying, for the record, the maneuver with voting on a 6.7 prior to voting on a 7.9, the refusal to revoke the motion, it was really disappointing. It just goes ahead and paints the board further into a corner with potential reductions. Thanks very much. I appreciate your hard work. I know it's hard. Have a great night.
Thank you. We have no one else in the room, so I'm going to next go to Heather McCann online. Just give us 1 second while we unmute you, Heather.
Hi, Heather McCann, 62 Crossan Drive. I just, first of all, I just wanted to say, I definitely appreciate everybody's hard work on the board. But I definitely echo Ms. Risley's sentiment about starting at 6.7. I don't think that was the best move. I think that absolutely it's painting the board into a corner. It is going to likely get reduced further from there. And, I don't know what happened with where that flip happened. I am actually very proud of Ms. Philbin for sticking with the original amount. I think that was where we should have started at. Should have started high and then went down from there. Wanted to mention that I thought Ms. Fish, Councillor Fish brought up an interesting idea about the ASVAB. I definitely think that the SAT prep courses are important, and it's a great offering for the students. However, it would be beneficial to offer ASVAB at the school. My son took the ASVAB and he scored a 97, which was extremely high. But he had to take like 2 days away from home to take this test. But I think it would be a nice offering for those that are interested in getting into the military. Yeah, that's all I have to say. And thank you again for all your hard work. Bye.
Thank you. Next is Jason Philbin. Just give us a second to unmute.
Jason Philbin, 11 Harvest Lane. First, I would just like to say that I am thoroughly disgusted at how things transpired tonight. I think that if anybody in the room thinks that the difference between the 6.7 or the 7.9, other than the cuts, is going to make an actual difference, especially since there was no consensus in the end anyways, at the town council level, I don't know that anyone's been paying attention the last couple of years to how this gets done. I don't think that even if by some miracle we got 6.7 approved by the town council, that the referendum and the people of the town could handle that kind of initial impact all at once. There was an opportunity for all of you up there who are whose charge is to support the community students and providing an education that I think should be above subpar. And I think that today we failed in demonstrating that to the community, that you guys were defenders of that. The 6.7 to 7.9 did nothing other than potentially include more cuts, and it'll have no major impact at the town council level either way. Thank you.
Okay, I see no other hands online. Just want to give it another go. Would anyone online like to speak? Just raise your Zoom hand at this time. Okay, seeing none, I'd like to move to points of information. Would any board members like to speak at this time? I'm sorry, Mackenzie. Can I move to go past that clock? Oh, thank you, Mackenzie. So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No. Joelle, vote. Sorry.
Yeah.
Elaine.
Aye.
Aye.
Bill.
Sorry.
All right, David. JP.
Aye.
Dana.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Thank you. Thank you, Mackenzie. Okay, is there anyone, Elaine, go ahead.
Okay, so points of information.
Yes.
All right, so thank everybody. Thank you. This wasn't easy. And I just want to make sure it's on record that 4 is the number it will keep me up tonight. That is the number of people that we looked at. So it was not easy for any of us. I know I came, last 2 weeks ago, set forth a very difficult task. I wanted to see what did 3% look like, because that is, like we talked about, that is, usually the cost of living increase. So to me, that seems like a reasonable request to go to the town. Hey, cost of living increased 3%. Why wouldn't our spending costs increase 3%? But of course, we're so far behind. I get that. So I just want to say, yeah, I will not be sleeping well tonight, but I think we had to start somewhere. and I don't think anybody's thrilled with the cuts. But thank you for working together to try to come up with something that we could present.
Thank you. Joelle?
I'll just piggyback what Elaine just said, you know, whatever we did here tonight, this was not a perfect outcome. I'm sure we all agree with that. I'm sure if we would have voted for 7.8, 8.1, unless it's 20, we're always going to have criticism. There's always going to be some criticism. So, like I said, I'm not happy with what we voted for, even though I voted for it myself. But we have to start somewhere. And, you know, we're in the situation that we're in, and it didn't happen last night. It's happened the last 10 years. So I know the criticism's coming our way, whether I think it's fair or unfair for the criticism. It is what it is. I'm a big boy. I can deal with it. All right. So I just want to say thank you all for being here. I know this is tough, and thanks for not making it a battle. All right. Thanks for understanding each other. And Jen, thank you for orchestrating all this. You're doing an amazing job, and I know it's tough sitting in that seat. And so I will say, please, when you put your head on your pillow tonight, please try to rest and say, hey, I did my best. So thank you, Jen. That's all I got.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Jaden? Go ahead.
Were you ahead of yourself?
No.
Oh, okay. Everything Joelle and Elaine just said wrapped up perfectly. I think there's very few times other than during Jet games, obviously, that I get as fired up as you know as you get. It's a rough life. I get it. All right. Thanks for reminding me.
So we're at the level of the Jets.
Yeah, well, you know, all New York. Here we go, baby. But on a serious note, I don't want it to be lost upon folks how much respect, and I'll let people speak for themselves, how much respect I have for each and every person sitting in this room and all the board members on the call right now. And again, especially Dana, who didn't, you know, she's standing for what she believes in, and I can't blame her for that. And so at the same time, though, I can completely understand whether anybody in this room, why you are where you are. And so I don't want this to, hopefully we don't leave this room, because I look up to everybody in this room in different ways, just in many different ways. And it kills me to witness, difficult conversations go sour, right? But this board is known for catching it and snapping back into shape. And so I think heading into next week, nope, the first time in a few weeks that it's not next week.
It is next week. It is.
Jeez.
Meeting the 18th, aren't we?
Oh yeah, we are.
For town council.
Oh, joyous occasion. Heading into next week, by next week, I hope it is my hope that we can at least be aligned in that we expect more from the town council. Yeah, sure, but the town manager and his office, and investigating how we can explore options through them more. I cannot let that get lost upon what we've just discussed tonight. We've got to get some sort of engagement by the town manager, by the town council, and by the financial director. So I appreciate everybody in this room tonight and on the call. This was a good one. Only 3 hours, but it felt a little longer. But again, I just can't say thank you enough, because I appreciate you all enough, or a lot. And I'm proud to work with you. Right? And hopefully we remember that heading into next week and the week after that and the week after that. So that's just where I'm at. That's where I want to leave us tonight. So thank you. And again, to our leadership, and Joelle just hit on it. I can imagine what the conversations have been like of how to figure out where do we go from here. And so I give you a lot of credit. It is not time that I could see myself committing to it, especially with work and all these things. And it's a lot of brain power throughout the day. And you two specifically are two people I highly look up to. So I appreciate you showing how to do it, and how to do it while also being in different political parties, by the way. And hopefully we can keep showing that. So thank you both.
Mackenzie.
I echo my appreciation for all of you, for everybody who's come tonight, either in person or phone, to participate in this process. either tonight or over the last few weeks, especially folks who, did stay on for that particular 5-hour meeting or who have watched it since. This is meant to be a collaborative public process, and that in some ways makes it harder, right? Getting 9 people from different walks of life, different political parties, different experiences to come together and agree enough to get a budget passed, I think is a feat in and of itself. I think it definitely speaks to the working relationship here. And I'm frankly excited about what I think this board can go do, right? I think that we have an opportunity to build some momentum and go get some things right that maybe we haven't yet. I appreciated Mary Rose's comments, particularly about how we communicate about the budget, right? I think I said it earlier. And I've certainly said it in some other forums that the percent increase of the budget is a completely irrelevant number, frankly, when it comes to talking about a budget increase or a decrease or whatever it may be. It's the way that we communicate it is very important to how people understand and comprehend what it is that's in this budget. And I'd love to see us start looking at other things to anchor our understanding of our budget process too. But I think that there's some room to go there, both in the FFC committee. No, FCC. No, you're right. I was right the first time. And the communications committee in particular. As an actual point of information, I am disappointed that I will not be part of the joint town council meeting. I think it's incredibly important that us as residents hold our elected officials accountable to their charge. I think we've all been vocal about some opinions about what the town council should do, and certainly will share those more specifically, but I will not be in attendance for that meeting. I will be out of the country for the next 2.5 weeks. I'm sure that we will we will have more votes in that time. We'll have some other discussion in that time. And while I forgot that I can't be there to support you all in that, I know that my perspective is going to be carried through well with this team, and appreciate you all giving me the comfort to feel that way. So thank you.
Yes.
I would just like to thank Chris Moran, Mary Beebe, and Mary Rose Duberic, who are present tonight from our town council after capital budget meeting Monday night and a town council meeting last night, and for sticking with us for these 3 hours. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope that you can carry back some of the conversations to the town council as a whole. Go ahead, Jaden.
There's always one party I feel like, and I completely concur with what you just said. But adding on to that, I feel like there's always one party that gets ignored, and it's the man sitting across from me over there. The amount of data and numbers and people that the man, Dr. Willett, and I refuse to call him anything else. He says, "Dude, call me Walter," and I refuse to call him anything else because he deserves the respect that he is given in most settings. The amount of information that is made available to us, he has a fantastic staff, and I'm sure he would tell you that himself. But he does a lot for us. And through tonight's discussion, this discussion goes on for more and more hours if it is not confined to where it is right now. And so somebody who doesn't get enough credit, Dr. Willett, I want this written in stone that I am appreciative, and I'm sure we are appreciative of your work. Keep it going, man. Keep it going. I'm sorry that we are where we are. And again, I can't say it enough because I feel like we never We do. We mentioned it. Dr. Willett, thank you for putting this together. Okay, now onto the discussion. Okay, Dr. Willett, thank you. But Dr. Willett, thank you. Because just like our leadership here, there's a lot, even in the last 24 hours, that has to get put together like that. So, it doesn't just happen. So, thank you.
I'll spread that out a bit. The whole office, everybody in the district's really pulling for this board and this town, so they all deserve the thanks, not me. But in the office, Suzanne Waterhouse, the Hiram, Roger Espinoza, Taylor, Strasser, Jesse, Yesenia, they're all just constantly working to make everything work for us. So, and Jen Colombo. So it's really all of them. I just try to get it all organized, but they're doing all the heavy lifting.
They and you were doing it also.
So Peter Stava, Beth Bates, like the Academy Awards, unless you start playing.
Yeah, right.
So it's just all these people and what's making it happen for you. So
You're selling yourself short because you mentioned the information that was pulled together in the last 24 hours. About 5. Oh wow. Whoa. So, to get that piece together for us for tonight to lead this discussion, it was about 5 hours. Wow. So, make a motion.
I should thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, I will accept a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Oh, seconded.
There you go.
No objections. Let's go.
Joelle,
I
Elaine,
As much as I hate to see this, aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Mackenzie, Jaden,
Aye.
JP. Mr. Willett, you take JP and Dana off at once.
Figure this out.
There goes JP.
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank